picture. The real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Carter did a pretty nice job against us. We were able to put a little bit together there against the reliever, but for the most part, pretty quiet.
That was Ollie Marmol after the game, short and sweet yesterday, talking about the loss. Cardinals lose 2 out of 3 against the Tampa Bay Rays. Lose both games over the weekend that they played. Did not play on Saturday. Strange. Still doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but neither here nor there. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. All right, T-Bones, what was your biggest takeaway from the weekend?
So baseball at a spring training facility is not that bad, right? Yeah.
I watched those games this weekend. I consumed all of the content. And then yesterday, as I started putting together our notes for today, I tried to think to myself, all right, what was the biggest storyline? Was it Willson Contreras getting his power going? Was it Nathan Church, your boy T-Bone, having a big day? Was it Matthew Liberatore, his struggles once again? Miles Michaelis, his struggles once again? We're getting close to the end of the road with him, though.
By you mean end of the season?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Was it the Cardinals doing what they needed to do in order to get a better draft pick? They lose 2 out of 3. They're rising up the ranks now, very close to a potential top 10 selection. What was the story? And I'm genuinely curious. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL is where you can find us on YouTube as well. I didn't have a lot. I just thought to myself, I'm not sure if I care about any of these things. And so I am wondering, are people also getting to that same place? Am I alone in this? Am I representative of a larger fan base, or am I simply representing myself and that I think I have reached the place of apathy? It's not that I don't care about the Cardinals. I just don't really care about what happens the rest of the season. I don't think anything that happens from here until the end of the year will sway my view on any of these players in any kind of a meaningful way. I think I have a pretty good idea, a pretty good grasp on where they stand, at least right now, not necessarily what they'll be in 3 to 5 years, but what they are at this point in their respective careers. I don't think anything's going to tangibly change in terms of where they're at in the standings. They'll probably fall somewhere in the draft between 7th and 15th, depending on how the rest of the way goes. There's just not a whole lot here for me to take some grand takeaway from over the weekend. So, T-Bone, did you feel that way as well? I don't know.
I did, and, I think we're probably a little late to the apathy party for the St. Louis Cardinals, because I think some of the fan base started on March 27th, and then I think some of the rest of the fan base started on August 1st after the sell-off. And we said it kind of at the time at the trade deadline, hey, why not kind of alleviate the logjam? Feel like now is the time when you can make some decisions on these guys. I don't think you need another 2 months, because for being frank, 2 months probably there wasn't a lot that was going to change. But yeah, I'm with you. I watched these games over the weekend, and I've kind of begun the countdown of, okay, how many more games do we have to go until the season's over? Because there's just not a lot that you're going to learn. And now they're getting to the point where, they're not even really watchable, if we're just being honest. Their pitching's not pitching well enough. Their offense isn't hitting. You want to talk about what's bad baseball? Watching a team that can't pitch and a team that can't hit. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I saw stuff, and, I thought some of the same things like you did. Boy, Libby, not great. What's going on with him? Still not holding our velo, still not getting deep into ball games. I watched the offense and went, boy, the Rays make that ballpark look kind of small. They're hitting home runs left and right, and here we are singling them to death, and death is kind of being gracious on the way that I described their offense. I'm with you. There's just not a whole lot to really watch the Cardinals for in the final month.
I did find the Libby thing to be interesting. Now, I don't know how much it matters, and it's one of those things that as I'm consuming this right now and really over the llast 2 months, Matthew Liberatore, the last time that he recorded an out in the 6th inning was June 29th. Boys, it is August, 25th? We're talking about 2 months now since he last recorded an out, just one out in the 6th inning. And in that stretch of time, he has 8 starts, and he has a 5.8 ERA. Underlying numbers suggest, that's pretty much what he's been. Strikeout rate is down. Walk rate is up a bit compared to what it was previously. He's getting hit a lot harder. The fastball velo ebbs and flows over the course of the game, and then once he gets into the 5th, typically, it dips significantly. T-Bone, I don't know if this is, hey, Matthew Liberatore, this is going to be what he is, because it is what he was back in 2021. This has always been his MO at the big league level is if you can keep the velo, if you can maintain that velo later into the games, he's a pretty darn good pitcher, which is what happened earlier this season. But once the velocity starts to dip, and it typically does, his effectiveness dips. That's why he was so good in the bullpen. The velo was there. He only went 1, 2, maybe 3 innings, short spurts, and get him out of there. That is one of the biggest storylines to me heading into 2026 is, can Libby fix this in the offseason? Can he go out there and do what he did earlier this season, or is this going to be the story of Matthew Liberatore's Cardinals career? But I'm not going to learn that down the stretch this year. That's not really something I can learn until 2026, and if we're being honest, there's only bad things you can learn about that early in the season because he was fine with this until we got into July. So we're almost 11 months away from me learning anything that matters about Matthew Liberatore and whether or not he can fix these issues for himself as well.
Yeah, like I continue to say, like I hope that these issues that we're seeing from him are workload. But I can't get that answer until 2026, to your point. Like, now I almost, like, feel bad that they keep throwing him out there. I just want to go give him a hug and be like, I'm sorry. Look, if the Cardinals had pitching depth, you'd be in the bullpen and we wouldn't have this issue. But, Libby, come on here. Give me a hug. That's one of their biggest storylines. But, like, it's at the point now to where, like, I just know it's going to happen, right? Like, I knew going into that game on yesterday, Sunday, that, hey, he's going to go about 3 innings, probably going to look good, and then the velo's going to dip, and it's not even like, it's not a question of if it's going to happen, it's when is it going to happen.
Yeah,
and when it does, how quickly.
4th or 5th inning.
Yeah, and then they just come out and they pull him, and now you got the pitching staff that's reeling because the bullpen has to eat up a bunch of innings. Like, it's not even a surprise at this point anymore, and it is a question mark of, okay, what is Matthew Liberatore going to be? But again, you can't get that answer until 2026, so we get back to the conclusion of, yeah, we're not going to learn a whole lot here in the final month.
Somebody on the text line said velocity had nothing to do with walking the bases loaded. Sure, and again, as I mentioned, it's not just that. But I think velocity does have a little something to do with his lack of trust in his fastball. Once the velo dips, he lacks any kind of a trust in that, and then that becomes a nothing burger in terms of the pitch. Guys can either just sit on it or they can eliminate it and wait on something else. And so now he's having to throw some of his breaking balls, and he's trying to throw those for strikes, and that results in him either throwing a breaking ball that is clearly going to be a strike, it hangs, and then boom, it's going the other way a long way, or they just spit on it and say, I'm good. I'll wait for the fastball that's coming in at 92, 93 instead of what it typically was, which is 94, 95. So yes, it does absolutely matter. It's a huge storyline for Matthew Liberatore, but maybe it wasn't the story as to why he walked the bases loaded. That's one instance. I'm talking about 2 months of sample size where it's been a huge issue for Matthew Liberatore. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Cardinals are back in St. Louis tonight. They're taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. It'll be old friend Johan Oviedo on the mound for the Pirates, taking on the Cardinals this evening. Michael McGreevy will be on the mound for St. Louis. Johan Oviedo, since going over to Pittsburgh, T-Bone, you'll never believe this, but he's been a league average major league starter.
We could use one of those, being honest.
Well, they have 5 of them, so I don't know that he would necessarily do a whole lot to change what we're watching with the Cardinals rotation. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, the Big Ten's getting some serious love for national analysts. What does that mean for the Illinois Fighting Illini? Because T-Bone keeps telling me they've got to win 9 games this year. Is that likely if the middle of the Big Ten is going to be as good as people are suggesting? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. Questions and answers coming up at 11:45. But coming up next, there was a huge piece of news over the weekend in Major League Baseball as one of the best pitchers of this generation may never pitch again. We'll talk about that, what it means for him next year on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
We're going to talk about Zach Wheeler and whether or not he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but instead we got to talk about big news here in St. Louis. According to the team, St. Louis City SC is parting ways with sporting director Lutz Pfannenstiel. He is out as what is effectively the president of soccer operations over there at St. Louis City SC. T-Bone, you're the biggest soccer fan, I believe, on the station. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this open-ended to you. I've certainly got some thoughts. I'm curious, as you hear this news today, St. Louis City SC, according to the team in a report that was just sent out, a release, they are parting ways with sporting director Lutz Pfannenstiel. I know you weren't a huge fan of what he had done over the last year or two. How do you feel about the decision?
Yeah, I think it was time for them to make this call. I mean, he's gone through 2 head coaches now in a matter of a 3-year span of kind of using them as the, hey, this is the reason things aren't working out here, when really it's all been about their roster construction. And look, they've dealt with injuries this year, but I mean, you can't defend what they've put on the field this year. They are 21 points. That is second worst in the Western Conference at a minus 16 goal differential. And it was hard to kind of see what path he was laying for the club. So if you're City SC, you had to make this move, especially because I don't think you could give him a third head coaching hire. I think you had to make this move. You bring in somebody new to the organization, and then you go from there. You hire your next, basically, as you said it,
President of soccer operations
essentially. And then he can go out and hire the head coach that he wants. And maybe that is the interim that they have right now. But, yeah, I think this was the right call. I actually think it's probably a little late because the window's kind of closed where they can do transfers. I would have done this a little bit sooner. But they probably wanted to see if there was going to be any progress made with some of the things that he had done and if they got maybe that new coach bump. And the answer was no. So it was time that they moved on from Lutz.
I do think it makes some sense because, and I'm not talking about the timing. I can't speak to whether or not that particular portion of this makes sense. But Berkey, this is the final year of his contract. And if Berkey were to leave, he goes somewhere else, I mean, this team isn't what it once was. That is the foundation of what Lutz built here. He had 2 things. When we first got to know City SC in that inaugural season here in St. Louis, hot damn, they have an unbelievable goalie. And oh my God, this style is so much fun to watch. And especially the first few months of the season, it's incredibly effective. So you have those 2 things to build around. It's like, all right, this is the foundation of what can be a successful tenure here. Berkey has remained very good, but the press style, it has lacked in its effectiveness. Basically, I think it was starting right around this time in that first season, they went cold. Mm-hmm. And that went all the way up until the playoffs. And so that first season, I think all of us can say it was incredibly successful. First of all, they got fan buy-in, and that was the most important thing. And that first season, you want to have your fans latch on to who you are as a team. And they bought into what St. Louis City SC was. That's huge, and it really, I can't overestimate the value of that. So that's big, but then they come back in year 2, and the system just clearly is no longer working. And then they have to switch out some of the players within that system, and that doesn't change anything. So, all right, let's change the coach, and they go with somebody new. And then that guy brings in a system that was the opposite of what they had been running previously. And Lutz is like, oh, this is not what I want to do. I thought he was going to run this press, and he's not running the press. And then people that actually know soccer, I do not, suggested, hey, this guy has never operated that way. Why did you think he was going to be the one that would run this high press system when that is nowhere in his history? And St. Louis City SC effectively, without saying it out loud, but kind of saying it out loud, said he lied to us in the hiring process. What, you trusted the interview as opposed to everything he's ever put on film? Okay. And now here we are. They're once again kind of in this process of figuring out who they want to be. So my hope is, and they put in their statement that he laid the foundation, but now they want to go in a different direction. I'll be curious to see what that means. What is that direction? Who do you want to be as an organization? Because I remember early on, T-Bone, they talked about how they were going to be this homegrown talent, right? They were going to take their time and they were going to lay the foundation of not players from international markets, but literally homegrown players from St. Louis or that went through their system with City 2 that become great players on City. Timo, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that's what they've necessarily built here. It has been a lot of guys that are kind of in and out, that the transfer, whatever.
They seem to be getting closer to that, but they haven't seen it yet. So, yeah.
So I'm curious to see, what do they want to be? Who do they want this organization to be long term? And that's going to be the goal of whoever comes in to replace Lutz.
Yeah, and I think that this thing started to get off the rails on them. I mean, you brought up when they kind of fell apart in their first season in that second half there. And then once you got into year two, like, I don't know if it was so much a disconnect between the organization and the head coach and the players, but all of a sudden there was the weird things where you had like Adeniran, who's like not at practice, he's holding out and he's fighting with Bradley Carnell, and they fire Carnell. And the hiring of their head coach coming into this season, where you mentioned it, where everything was off, there just seemed to be no kind of direction or idea, and you can't mess up that hiring when you're going out there and trying to name the next head coach and trying to fix things. Now, they have City 2 as the best in the Western Conference, so maybe this is one of those things where Lutz just didn't get a chance to see it.
The YouTube chat said, guys, City 2 has a league record 14 wins. Kids are cooking, but they aren't MLS ready yet. Yeah, that stuff takes some time. That was always my concern. Is this going to take too much time before fans get interested in the MLS product? And then you've kind of lost your window here where it's still new, it's still exciting. You've got these season ticket holders that they were like bought in for the first couple of seasons because you had to pay early on up front for a number of seasons. And then you potentially get screwed out. But yeah, if they're doing well at the lower level, that's great. And that can be something that supplements your talent. What does this window now look like for the next 3 to 5 years before those kids are 100% ready to go?
Yeah, and ownership clearly, I mean, based on the move they made here, the move that they made with Bradley Carnell last season, still wanted to be competitive while they were trying to do that. Like most organizations do, they want to supplement their minor league systems. They want to have that eventually come up and become their next core. But before you get there, you got to be able to build a team that's there now. And City just didn't have that. And you look at what else has not aged well for them. Bradley Carnell, you know where he's at? He's with the Philadelphia Union. You know who's on top of the Eastern Conference right now? The Philadelphia Union. So you had the right coach in place, but they kind of panicked. I think there was more of a roster construction issue around what Carnell wanted to do, lack of player buy-in. And then once you lost that, it was going to be tough sledding for Lutz to ever recover from that. And it's where you end up here today where he's out.
If you missed it, the news of the day here in St. Louis, City SC is parting ways with sporting director Lutz Pfannenstiel. He was here for, 3 full seasons now? Almost? This would have been the 3rd season, right, T-Bone?
Yes.
So he's out before the end of the 3rd season. In that time, you technically had, 4 coaches, interms included?
Yeah. They're on their 4th right now.
And so now you're going to have your 2nd director of the soccer side of things as well. It's been an up and down start to the MLS era here in St. Louis. That we'll always have that first season. Nobody can take that away from us. The first game here was spectacular. Really, the entire first season was pretty incredible.
Yeah, let's
up
cut
until
it
the
off.
final 6 weeks of the regular season.
Yeah, but that leading up to that though was great.
It was so good. It was so good. All right, he's T-Bone. That's Bradford. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In about 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. But next, the Big Ten is getting some serious love for national analysts. What does that mean for Illinois? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a pair of tickets to the St. Louis Blues home opener versus the Minnesota Wild October 9th at Enterprise Center. Blues hockey's right around the corner, and single game tickets for the 2025-26 season are on sale now. This upcoming Blues season is stacked with great matchups, can't miss giveaways, and fan favorite theme nights.
Get more details and enter to win a pair of free tickets for the Blues home opener now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
NCAA football is back on ESPN. Thursday night, Cincinnati and Nebraska. Pregame at 7:30, kickoff at 8. The NCAA plays on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards drop a rain-soaked finale. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. All-Star Junior Camanero's second career Grand Slam lifted Tampa Bay past St. Louis on Sunday 7-2 after a lengthy weather delay. Ollie Marmol's Redbirds falling 3 games below 500. They return home tonight as Michael McGreevy opposes Pittsburgh's Johan Oviedo. Better results weekend-wise for Memphis. J.J. Weatherholt's crew topping Gwinnett 7-1 at AutoZone Park. He recorded 3 more hits. Quinn Matthews tossing 4+ innings of 1-run balls. Soccer City SC parts ways with sporting director Lutz Pfannenstiel. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
The text line just sent this in from the 314. Guys, are you referring to, or did you see the Big Ten versus SEC article over on The Athletic? It's crazy for me to see how close that they thought they were. If you missed my last segment, or my last tease rather, in the last segment, it was, yes, referring to how much people seem to like the Big Ten heading into this season. Alongside Tanner and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex back in with us tomorrow from his long vacation. So we will have Alex Ferrario back in with us tomorrow. What they did over on The Athletic, T-Bone, was they put the teams ranked in order from 1 to 16 in both the Big Ten and in the SEC. And so they said, in the hypothetical scenario where these teams played against each other, who would win? All of them on a neutral site, who would win? Texas versus Penn State, who you got? Georgia versus Ohio State, who you got? All the way down to the 16th ranked teams, Mississippi State versus Maryland. One of them had the SEC winning 9 out of the 16 games. The other had the Big Ten winning 9 out of the 16 games. Overall, though, I was a bit surprised, especially in the middle of the respective conferences, how many times they were selecting a Big Ten team over its SEC counterpart. As an example, when it was Washington versus Texas A&M, and Bradford, you know this, I am very high on Texas A&M this season, both of the Athletics writers went with Washington.
Okay.
I found that to be quite interesting. Iowa versus Auburn. They both selected Iowa. When you ended up with Minnesota versus Vanderbilt, one of them picked Minnesota by 2 touchdowns. So you keep going down this list. Arkansas versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin for both of them. These are teams that I don't think a whole lot of, and yet it's becoming more prevalent for national writers to suggest, hey, the middle to back end of the Big Ten, pretty darn good this year. I think what's changed is, whereas last year the top of the Big Ten I thought was better than the top of the SEC, the top might come back a little bit this year. Maybe it's not quite as good. You don't have the same level of quarterback play outside of basically Drew Aller. Whereas the SEC, you got some high-level quarterback play both at the top and then like the second tier of the conference. T-Bone, as I was thinking about this and how it relates to your Illinois Fighting Illini, I went to their schedule. I thought to myself, all right, at Indiana. People seem to really like them. I saw a list this past weekend where I think it's 4 of the top 100 players in college football they think play for Indiana currently. USC is getting some love. So much so that some people are picking them to make it to the playoff.
I know, which I find ridiculous.
We know Ohio State's going to be quite good this year. They always are. Washington is getting some buzz. People seem to very much like their quarterback. You're on the road at Washington this year. I just mentioned Wisconsin. People seem to be coming back to the pack there. Okay, well, that's 5 of your conference games. You're telling me it's a disaster of a season if they don't win at least 8 or 9 games this season.
I still believe that.
Is this swaying you at all to think, hey, maybe the rest of the Big Ten is a little better than I'm giving it credit for right now?
No, I still, first off, hold that 9 wins is what they have to do at bare minimum for not to be a disappointing season. But I just disagree with the people that are talking about the middle of the pack of the Big Ten, because I think the SEC's middle of the pack is much better than the Big Ten's. And look, if it does become that, then a lot of these games become more 50-50. But if we're being honest, like anytime that we've talked about the Illinois schedule, I've thrown most of those games kind of in the toss-up, like 60-40 favor Illinois, I would say. Like, I think USC's that, at Washington's that, at Wisconsin's that, at Indiana's probably a 50-50 game. And those are the games that will determine what their season is going to ultimately become. And that's what determines if they're going to be a team that is like 9-3, 10-2, fighting for a playoff spot, or a team that you look at and go, holy crap, were they like 6-6 this season, 7-5, barely bowl eligible? But no, I disagree with this notion that the Big Ten's middle of the pack is going to be able to like hold up with the middle of the pack of the SEC, because I think the SEC is just much deeper. I mean, you mentioned it with the quarterback play. Really, it's like Drew Aller and like Luke Altmaier, some of the top returning quarterbacks in the Big Ten. And like, look, I like Altmaier. He's like a game manager, right? He's like, ideally, I said this when you were out 2 weeks ago. I said, hey, it would be great if he could just do like what Brady Cook did for that Missouri offense. Just don't screw up and do just enough to help us win the football game.
Occasionally make a big play late in a game. That's
Exactly.
what Brady Cook was great at, is when the moments became big, Brady Cook seemed to step up. I mean, you think about that South Carolina game last year. He made the big throw to Luther Burden when they needed it most. Now, the defense couldn't get a stop, and then ultimately they lose the game. But he had the moment that he was waiting on. You think back to that Kansas State game a couple of seasons ago. He led the drive. You think back to that Florida game a couple of seasons ago. Yes, huge catch by Luther Burden. Brady Cook threw that one, and that's a big moment for him.
Did he have a big run against Auburn with like one ankle?
Yeah, he's. I mean, that comeback was him, right?
Yeah.
So
second half,
you think back to some of the big moments for Brady Cook. He was a game manager in every sense, but it was the big moments where he stepped up and he made the plays that you think back to. That's what you need out of Luke Altmaier this season. He had a couple of those last year, by the way, where he did come up big in the biggest possible moment. You just need him to continue that.
Yeah, and like that's where I come in line, and I say like Altmaier is probably in that second tier of quarterbacks in the Big Ten, but there's only like one guy in the first tier, and it's Drew Aller. I don't know if there is another guy that I would put in that category in the Big Ten.
Not that we know of yet.
There's a bunch of unknowns. Like Underwood at Michigan can move himself up into that. Ohio State's QB can move himself up into that. But like for right now,
Raiola could.
Yeah.
He was not good last year. We haven't seen it yet, but all of the pedigree is there for him to be able to move into that next tier.
Most of these guys fit in that second tier, and I would like take the SEC second tier above these guys.
Exactly.
And I like Altmaier, but I would take Sanders at South Carolina. Is that right, Sanders?
Well, Sellers,
sorry. Sellers at South Carolina. I would take Lagway at Florida, who's in that second tier. Like, those guys I like much better than what you're seeing from that second tier in the Big Ten. And that's why I continue to say, sure, some of these games are going to be toss-ups for Illinois. I'm still going to take Illinois in those toss-up games.
And that exact aspect, Tanner,
Homer,
about the quarterback situation.
From the Mizzou guy over there.
That is exactly why I think it's inexplicable to be making these long stretches and saying the middle tier, I'll grant you, fine. The bottom half, the bottom rung whatsoever altogether of the Big Ten can compare whatsoever to the SEC, because I'm looking on the page here and I'm seeing the likes of an Indiana. Okay, you're replacing Rourke at the quarterback spot there. Is Cignetti able to basically replicate what he did last season?
I think Michigan, they might have improved.
Maybe
for what it's worth.
Michigan, for what it's worth, having the number one recruit in the entire class most recently, it's still a freshman, a true freshman quarterback.
Raiola was in that spot last year. He was terrible.
Let's take it back. Maeva for USC. Is he going to be the guy to rescue Riley in a manner of speaking? Minnesota even. Okay, maybe Minnesota is a bit more of a darling in that middle tier coming into this season. You lost Max Brosmer. I don't think that you get demonstrably better by doing that. That is a stretch far and away. Even Kansas State, everybody's hyped up. BK, we talked about it before the start of the show.
I have to bring it up with K-State versus Iowa State over the weekend.
DeMond Williams, I should say Washington, as a matter of fact. Washington, in that situation, maybe shades of the Penix Jr., you're telling me that head-to-head, in a would-be head-to-head game against the Texas A&M, you would actually go with the unknown commodity there? No, I don't think so. Not at all.
There's upside with the Big Ten. There's also potential downside that you have to account for, and I think that's, at this point in the season, what gets dismissed is the downside of the unknown, because when you have seen a guy come in, like DJ Lagway, he has his flaws. He is not a perfect quarterback. One of those flaws is something that's already shown up. He can't stay on the football field. He gets hurt far too often. But Lenore Sellers is another guy. He had some fumbling problems at times last season. I think he's a great quarterback. I love Lenore Sellers. He had some flaws. Whereas with these guys that are coming in from the Big Ten, you haven't seen those flaws on the field just yet, and so you assume they're not going to have the same issues. It's the same thing with like the backup quarterback syndrome in the NFL, right? I haven't seen that guy fail behind our offensive line yet. Let's see if it looks better. Or in Major League Baseball, I haven't seen that AAA guy that was a top 50 prospect fail yet. Let's see if he can do better than the top 50 prospects that's not living up to my expectations at the big league level. So it's some of that I think is going on right now, because the SEC, you just have more players that have had more quarterbacks, really, that have had more experience at this level already. Even at a place like Auburn, I've seen Jackson Arnold fail. I know what that looks like when he fails. He was at Oklahoma last year. It was not overly impressive. That doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback. It just means he's average. And in the SEC, you've got a lot of guys that I could fit into that criteria of at least average, if not better. The Big Ten, I've got a lot of guys, I truly don't know where to peg them just yet. Maybe they become average. Maybe they're great. The vice versa, the opposite of that can also be true. They may be terrible in 2025. We just don't know just yet. A guy who might be great for Mizzou this year is their starting running back, Ahmad Hardy. He's coming from a group of 5 team, and a gentleman on a Barstool podcast earlier this week, T-Bone, said he could be a legit Heisman contender this year. Take a listen.
Top 7 Heisman finisher, Ahmad Hardy, running back at Mizzou. That's my bold prediction. I planted my flag last year with Ashton Genty. Told you all long before the season began, he's the best running back in college football. I'm not saying Ahmad Hardy is the best and most talented running back in college football today. People are not going to be able to tackle him, and that game is going to translate in the SEC.
That is from a gentleman by the name of Liam Blutman. I was unfamiliar with him prior to him saying that about Ahmad Hardy, but I like the guy. I know nothing more about him other than what he said about my running back at the University of Missouri. That is... Excuse me, I'm getting choked up here.
There?
That is from the Unnecessary Roughness podcast, if you'd like to check the whole thing out. Ahmad Hardy, T-Bone, is somebody that I would say most casual college football fans are not familiar with. Hell, a lot of casual Mizzou fans might not be familiar with him. He was a stud last season at UL Monroe, and his story is really interesting. He went to UL Monroe not because he didn't have offers from elsewhere, but because he wanted to get on the field. And he saw the way that the landscape was trending where, hey, if I go have success at UL Monroe, I'm going to have options going into my second season. So he went there, earned the starting nod, rushed for more than 1,000 yards, and then said, all right, time for me to take my talents elsewhere. And apparently his coach was very much in favor of this plan. His coach saw the talent, say, hey, if you come here, you're going to have a successful season, which is good for me, good for our program, also good for you, because then you can go earn a job elsewhere. Otherwise, you could end up at one of these places. You get stuck behind 2 or 3 running backs. They may then continue to recruit over you, and you get stuck and you don't get to put any kind of tape out there for other teams to be able to see. And all they can look back to is what you were 3 years ago, and they don't know what you are now. So it worked out for him. He was successful last season. T-Bone, when this offense is at its best at Missouri, it is a run-based offense. We've seen that in Eli Drinkwitz's tenure, whether that's going all the way back to a Larry Roundtree, a Tyler Beatty. More recently, you look at what Cody Schrader was able to do for them 2 years ago when that was the best version of Mizzou that we've seen under Drinkwitz. Ahmad Hardy's success this year, the new starting running back, is going to go a long way in determining whether or not Missouri can be the team that a lot of us as fans want them to be.
Yeah, if Missouri's going to be a team that is, what would you say, a surprise, I would say 9-3, 8-4 would feel 9-3 if they're going to surprise us, I think, this year. It's going to be because Hardy ends up becoming a stud, just like they had Cody Schrader, who finished 8th in Heisman voting in 2023, and that almost gets forgotten about, that he was the guy that was kind of the driving force for that offense, because, sure, you had Brady Cook, who had the big moments. You had Luther Burden, who ends up going in the NFL draft and is with the Chicago Bears now. Schrader was the guy that was really the driving force for that offense. When Mizzou was at their best, since I've been here covering the team, Schrader was the guy that was leading the charge for them in 2023. What happens? They lose Schrader last year. Running game was fine, but they had to rely a little bit more on their quarterback play, and it just wasn't there for Brady Cook, who was, again, another good game manager. But yeah, I agree. If there's going to be, if Missouri's going to be a team that is like 9-3 in the SEC, team that can take down some of the top dogs in the SEC this year, it's going to be because their running game is going to be a driving force.
We've had a few people texting in and on the YouTube chat that say this Liam cat is a certified ball knower. So I'll respect that. Liam Blutman, apparently very good, knows his stuff. So yeah, I'll give him the credit where it's due. He also apparently knows ball because he said that my guy is very good at football, and I'm into that. Bradford, what do you think? You've been at some of these practices. You've actually seen him tote the rock, as a ball knower would say. Were you impressed by what you saw from Ahmad Hardy?
Oh, he has been unleashed, and absolutely, BK, because I say this as well with the utmost reverence for a Cody Schrader. Tanner, as you stated, in 2023, really, he was the fulcrum of that offense in so many different ways. But Hardy gives you different elements. Not only is he going to be the same type of bell cow back, but rather has more of that breakaway speed and is a brute force from a physical standpoint. All of us can look at the numbers. The fact that he ran for over 1,300 yards last season, he had 13 touchdowns. But for an offense that in the early going, I'm not saying you have rampant question marks at quarterback, but what is your bread and butter is predicated on being able to generate those yards on the ground, win at the line of scrimmage, and you feel so comfortable and confident in getting it to this guy consistently, and also you have a deep running back room on top of that. That is the MO for Mizzou once more. That's going to result in a maximum number of wins.
A little bit of news to pass along on the Cardinals side of things. Cardinals, according to Jeff Jones, are listing McGreevy, Palante, Sonny Gray, and Matthew Liberatore as their 4 starters in Pittsburgh this week. That means they would be skipping Miles Michaelis' turn in the rotation. So a little bit of news to pass along there. Cardinals had the off day on Saturday, which allows for some of this. They can kind of maneuver what they're going to do with their rotation. Their next off day, though, is not until next Thursday, September the 4th. So we'll see if they're able to do anything more with this, or if it's just a one-time skipping a start for a Miles Michaelis situation. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN.
Give us your opinion on the Air Comfort Service heating, cooling, and insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK from my friends at Victory Men's Health. It is time for you to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. That means different things for all of us. For some, that might mean some weight loss goals that you're trying to meet. You can get some help with Victory Men's Health. It is not easy to lose that weight that you're looking to. They can potentially give you some advice, help you out with those weight loss goals. They can also help with erectile dysfunction issues. They can help with vitamin infusion plans. They've got a supplement shop, red light therapy. They've got cardiovascular testing, and it's all available at each of their 4 locations across the St. Louis area. O'Fallon, Missouri, O'Fallon, Illinois, Sunset Hills, and Town and Country. That's the one that I personally go to. And when you walk through the door, you'll see it's just like family over there. It's a beautiful state-of-the-art location. You walk in the door, and some of these kinds of places, you walk in, and it's, dimly lit, white walls. It feels like you're in a hospital. It's the opposite of the vibe that you get when you walk through the door at Victory Men's Health. So, low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, weight loss goals, you can get your help with Victory Men's Health. They'll unlock your inner champion at victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to the 2025 SMX World Championship Playoffs, Saturday, September 13th at the Dome at America's Center. The Dome at America's Center will see playoff supercross racing for the first time, featuring the premier riders in the world putting it all on the line for the World Championship title.
Experience the intense racing of the world's most demanding sport live. Get all the info and register to score that free 4-pack of tickets for the 2025 SMX World Championship Playoffs. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. We've been talking about this during the break. The Matthew Liberatore start on Thursday is interesting to me. And this comes directly from the Cardinals. It's not like something that was posted on ESPN.com or anything like that. They've got McGreevy, Palante, Sonny Gray listed as the next 3 days. And then they have posted Matthew Liberatore as the starter on Thursday versus TBD. They don't have the announced starter yet on the other side. T-Bone, that would mean he's going on short rest. It would mean they're skipping Miles Michaelis' start for that one as well. I do wonder if maybe they're just saying, hey, he's not getting deep into games and having success. Let's just go ahead and start off these piggyback situations now. And for the rest of this month, we can go about it that way. And the other thing is, once you get to September 1st, you've got the
Call-ups.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what their plan is here, but if they're going to start him on Thursday on short rest, I would have to imagine there's some kind of a piggyback situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't probably throw him on 3 days rest and expect him to go like 100 pitches. My guess is they're hoping for 45 pitches would be my guess. I don't know. I find this kind of weird that they're trying to do this and go with him on short rest, because typically they've had him going, like just looking at his last 5 starts where he's run into these issues, 85, 72, 80, 75, 73 pitches. I would think you'd want to give him the full 4-day recovery, but maybe they're going piggyback this. We'll have him go like 45 pitches. So in theory, like 3 innings, hope he maintains velo. And that's kind of how they approach it the rest of the way. And then they use this as an opportunity to buy some rest for Miles Michaelis, who's been struggling as well.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 913, that's my neck of the woods out in Kansas City. Did you guys hear Ollie talking about how agents don't want players to steal bases? He apparently said that to AJ Pierzynski. AJ mentioned this on his podcast. I found that pretty interesting. I saw this from AJ Pierzynski. I don't really know what to make of it. The way that he relayed this information, T-Bone, I'm not sure if you've seen this or not, but he said he was having a conversation with Ollie. My guess is before that Fox game that AJ Pierzynski was on the broadcast for.
Probably was supposed to be in private still. But
probably. And my assumption is he was asking, hey, you guys have some good athletes. Why aren't you stealing more bases, especially with a lack of power? And according to AJ, Ollie said, listen, when you look at what guys get paid for, they get paid for on base and they get paid for home runs. And sometimes in arbitration cases, if you get caught stealing, that can actually be used against you. So the incentive isn't necessarily there from a business perspective, from a monetary perspective, for these guys to try to steal bags. I find that to be really interesting. I also think some of this is true. Like Carlos Correa, for example, has been very outspoken about what the arbitration system pays for, because he asked the team, he was like, what do you guys pay for? I will strive for those numbers. And so he then was like, all right, so you guys don't really care about defense. Cool. I'm going to put less emphasis on my defense as well. And listen, it's harsh, but if that's what they're paying for, if they're paying you to sell out for homers, they're paying you to sell out for on base, and they don't really care about the strikeout numbers, cool, I'll sell out for those things. I find it to be interesting. I don't know how much is actually affecting this Cardinals team, but I think league-wide, it's absolutely something that could be a trend.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that it's potentially that's something that doesn't get paid for in arbitration. Like, think about it, like average doesn't even get paid for in arbitration. Luis Ariz hit like 347 one year, won the batting title for the National League, and then he lost his arbitration case. Like, think of that for a moment. This guy did something that we haven't seen in decades. He was one of the very few to hit above 300. That doesn't happen anymore in the game of baseball, and he lost his arbitration case. So the ARB process does pay for the three true outcomes. It pays for, do you slug, and do you get on base? And then for pitchers, it pays, do you strike guys out? That doesn't really pay for what your ERA is. It does help, but what do teams look for? They're looking more for strikeout stuff. Why did Josh Hader go from a guy that was a multi-inning threat out of the bullpen to a guy that said, hey, I just want to be a one-inning guy? It was so he could get through the arbitration process healthy and become a guy that could get to free agency.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line from the 314. Who do you think that the Cardinals could realistically target via free agency or trade this offseason? Man, I, honest to God, have no idea. I would not look at many free agents. If you see a free agent pitcher that is listed among the, way too early lists of the best free agents that are available this offseason, hell, a free agent player that's on those lists.
Yeah, we're not in that.
I would assume they're not signing any of them. That would be my expectation. I think you go down to the guys that are making $10 million or less. So you've brought up the name Andrew Heaney. Somebody like that makes a ton of sense. Another guy that I would be interested in, I don't know what exactly his situation is going to be, and you guys aren't going to like this name, is my guess. Walker Buehler. He's had a really horrific season this year for the Boston Red Sox. He was really bad last year as well. Could it work for you? I don't know, but he's 30 years old. He'll be 31 next year. He's got big time stuff. I wouldn't mind trying to find out if you could be the team that unlocks something in him. And if he does, you've got either a trade chip at the middle of the season, or you could re-sign him at the end of the year. More likely a trade chip. So that's the kind of path that I would prefer. Go high risk, high reward. That's the path that they have not traveled in recent seasons, is that one. I'd rather see something that's at least different.
Yeah, I think they're going to be looking for veteran experience that can come in and eat like 150 innings, I would say, is probably the threshold they're looking for. That's got a little bit of swing and miss and is potentially like a bounce back candidate like you laid out there, like Walker Buehler, or maybe it's a guy that's coming back from injury like Jordan Montgomery. And if he's available to pitch by the time you get to the offseason, maybe you look at him as one of the signings, because I think they're probably going to have to do maybe two of these where they go out there and they sign one that they think is, okay, you can just be the guy that we can write and pen for 150 innings, and then we'll maybe sign somebody that's like a high upside play that could also be like on the cheap end and maybe could eventually be moved on from and you replace with a younger arm.
You know who else I would throw into this category? Steven Matz. I wonder if you could see a return of him.
Oh.
I'm not kidding. Because they could potentially use a swingman next year. Somebody that could either start the season as a starter, kind of similar to what Matz did this year.
I was thinking Michael Lorenz, and I saw he's a free agent. He made a ton of sense to me.
There you go. Yeah, that would make some sense, is you end up with a situation where you have one of these guys come in, start for a month, Quinn Matthews then takes over and he enters the rotation, and then that player will slot into your bullpen.
They wanted Nick Martinez a long time ago. He's a free agent again, could do that.
Just got an update. Apparently it was a typo, so they're not sticking.
Okay, I figured that had to be the case. I said that off air, that I wonder if this was a mistake, and he said, no, it can't be. The team released it.
Yeah, team sent it out. Apparently they screwed it up. So all
we
that
can't
conversation
do anything right
about when they're going to start Libby, he's on normal rest. He'll be out there on Friday. No piggyback situation just yet. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll dive into some NFL quick hitters. But next, the Cardinals are reaching the point where they need to save a player from himself. That's T-Bone's opinion. He'll explain it next year on 101 ESPN.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm.
T-Bone here to tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, and it is coming soon here to the Show Me State. Later this football season, you'll be able to bet same-game parlays, money lines, props, and more right here in Missouri. Whether you're backing Kansas City to dominate on Sundays or you're sweating your hockey picks, DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you want to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when DraftKings Sportsbook goes live in Missouri, you'll be betting from home with the top-rated sportsbook trusted by millions. Safe, secure, and ready to deliver the action like never before. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my code 101WXOS now to gear up for the launch in Missouri and be first in line for exclusive promos and can't-miss offers. That's code 101WXOS in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook, subject to regulatory licensing requirements.
Sign up to play fantasy football with Adam Wainwright, Lars Nootbaar, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help support some awesome charitable causes handpicked by the participating players. And show off your fantasy skills with a chance to win a variety of prizes. Space is limited.
You can find all the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season now at 101ESPN.com.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Got the news yesterday from John Denton. Mason Wynn received a pain-killing injection in his left knee during the All-Star break. We had known that. Mason Wynn made us aware of that. He, quote, has been dealing with persistent soreness for weeks. He was then scratched from Sunday's starting lineup because of that knee issue. Wynn said that he's going to have an MRI on that knee. His preference is, quote, to push through and get some kind of procedure on the knee if necessary in the offseason. Ollie Marmol said the following to reporters yesterday. We're on the same page as far as what's in his playing schedule, what it needs to look like, how to protect it, and how to be smart with the night and then day games and doubleheaders and that kind of stuff. That part of it has been super smooth because it's easy for me to talk to him and get a real answer for how we need to move on something. He's very honest with it, knowing when he can go and knowing when he's on the verge of needing a day off. That part of it has been really easy, end quote. T-Bone, you said to me something before the show about the Cardinals needing to save the player from himself in regards to Mason Wynn. How are you viewing this current situation?
Yeah, look, I love the fact that Mason Wynn is wanting to go out there and grind through this injury and try and post every single day for the St. Louis Cardinals. And for the most part this year, he's done an admirable job in being able to do that. And he's had the back flare up a couple times, I think, throughout the season, and that put him on the IL at one point this year. But I just see this, and I go back to Brendan Donovan, who was trying to fight through it with the turf toe that had because of overcompensation led up to the groin, was trying to fight through. And I go, man, it is time for the team to step in and just protect the player at this point. There's nothing to gain from the final 31 games of the regular season for the St. Louis Cardinals. They're basically out of this thing. I know if you look at the standings, you might be able to convince yourself if they get hot. They're out of it. They're not a playoff team. It is time to do what is best for the player. And if you're the team, you have to have an honest conversation with Mason Wynn. And hey, look, we love the fact that you want to post, right? This is a good thing. We like what you've put together this season. But we cannot have you really hurt this knee because you're out here playing in what is essentially meaningless baseball here in the month of September. Let's go on the IL. Let's see if rest can make this thing recover. And if you do get back to where you are able to play, then we'll activate you in later September. But if not, it's not the end of the world, right? It is best for you to get healthy so you can come into 2026 ready to go rather than potentially overcompensating with his knee, hurting something else, or even worst case scenario, hurting his knee even worse. It's time for the team to tell Mason Wynn that, hey, we need to shut this down, just like they did with Brendan Donovan in 2023.
That's my concern, is the overcompensation stuff, because they have more information on the knee than we do, certainly. We just know that he got some kind of an injection. There's some kind of swelling going on there, and it's messing with him. He has said it's killing him lately. Like, he did that post-game interview. I think it was with Jim Hayes, and he's like, hey, knee's a problem, big problem. So if he believes that and that's the case, they're managing it. I trust them to be able to do that. They've done a pretty good job, honestly, recently with the injuries that they have to manage through. They've mostly done pretty well with them. But then there's the Brendan Donovan thing. And his case study is probably what I would point to in this scenario with Mason Wynn. It's like, hey, man, it's not just that knee injury. Like, maybe they are in a spot where he can't really do anything more. Like, I had a meniscus injury whenever I was younger, and they're like, hey, listen, you can either like get it repaired, get it fixed, or you can kind of live with it. And as long as it's not messing with you, this is just something you'll figure out how to compensate for. You're not really going to be able to do anything more to that injury. So there are things like that. The problem is when it causes you to like move differently. And that can mess with your hips. It can mess with your feet.
It becomes a connective chain.
Exactly. And then you have some potential issues there. At this point in the season, when you're 3 games under 500, I'll be honest, I have not looked at where they are in the standings.
It's like 4 or 5 back of the wild card.
I mean, they're 5.5 back now. Realistically speaking, they're not in the playoff race, man. They don't have the pitching to be in the playoff race right now. I think they know it, and we certainly know it on the outside looking in. Yeah, put them on the 10-day IL. Call somebody up, and let's see what that looks like. Now, this gets us to the obvious follow-up question, T-Bone. Who do you think they would call up in this scenario?
I would like to think that they would call up J.J. Weatherholt.
Who do you think they would call up in this scenario, T-Bone?
Who they would call up is...
Your 40-man roster options are Matt Koperniak and Michael Ciani.
I think what they would probably do, and I think they've got a spot on the 40-man, if I'm not mistaken, open.
I promise you they can make it work.
You don't think they're having problems with their 40-man anymore? So. I wonder if they would do Cesar Prieto, who's down in the minor leagues. I think he's Rule 5 eligible once you get to the offseason, so why not do what you do with Nathan Church, right? You don't play him every day, maybe, but you end up looking at him saying, hey, we have to make a decision on him anyways. Why don't we just see what he looks like here at the big league level? You can even on days where you probably could play him at second base over Jose Fermin, because the JC probably becomes your shortstop. Gorman's your third baseman. Second base is open.
He's been solid this year.
Yeah, so why not just bring him up here, see what you have, find out, okay, is he someone that's worth keeping on the 40-man once we go to the offseason? And if not, you just non-tender him a contract and you just move on.
And I think, he makes some sense in that role that is currently being maintained by Jose Fermin. Mm-hmm. Jose Fermin is mostly just a utility infielder for you currently because of the number of outfielders that you have. Why couldn't Cesar Prieto become that for you? Might as well find out, right? It's not going to hurt you. And like you said, there is actual urgency with him because similar to what you have with a Nathan Church, you had to make a decision on the 40-man roster with Church by the end of the season, or by the end of this calendar year. The same thing exists for Prieto, and he's batting 290-something down in AAA this year. He doesn't have a ton of pop. He almost never walks, but he also never strikes out. It's kind of similar, once again, to the Alec Burleson profile. Doesn't have the same power, doesn't hit for the same amount of, the exit velos aren't what they were with Alec Burleson, but the Cardinals have seemingly been targeting this kind of player in recent seasons, low strikeout, highly aggressive in the zone, put the ball in play, and hopefully you grow into some damage with that profile. Prieto necessarily hasn't, but some of the other guys that they have with that profile have. I'd be cool with it. I'd bring him up, give Thomas to JC those opportunities at shortstop. Prieto gets one of those spots. Gorman gets the other, whether that be second and third. Hell, you could just interchange them depending on the day, and that's the way you make it work for the next 10 days or so. I know people aren't going to love hearing that, but I think that's more likely than J.J. Weatherholt's coming up at this point in time.
I think I agree, because I think if they were going to call up Weatherholt, they may have, I think we talked about this, they probably would have done it on the Donovan injury, because you have second base kind of open. Like, JC's the one that's getting most of the starts there. But you could have started Weatherholt in that spot and used JC in what is ultimately going to end up being his role in the big leagues, which is the super utility Swiss Army knife type guy. So if you're not going to call up Weatherholt, and again, they don't have to start the clock on Weatherholt if they don't want to, and they just want him to be getting continuous reps at the AAA level. Prieto's the guy, like, why not? He was a part of, I think, the Flaherty trade, if I remember correctly. So why not use this opportunity to see what you have and see if he's going to fit on your 40-man or not?
So if you were to look at, I know a lot of people are pointing to the fact that he would retain his rookie status at this point in time, talking about J.J. Weatherholt. That's not the only thing that the Cardinals are probably taking into account. My guess is that they're also taking into account the Super 2 status, which is basically when he could get an extra year on the rookie contract. And in that scenario, I think it's like 6 weeks into next year. So you'd get into, like, I think it's late April, early May, something like that. I'd have to look at the exact date when you become Super 2 eligible or whatever. But that might be something else that they're taking into account. Like, we might not just be talking about J.J. Weatherholt and whether or not he makes the team at the end of this season. We might be talking about whether or not J.J. Weatherholt makes the opening day roster next year. It's something to keep in mind. I do think it's not a nothing burger.
No, it's not.
Because if you're telling me they're going to keep him down for the rest of this season, and then you come into next year, you say, hey, would you like to get another year under contract for J.J. Weatherholt on the back end of this thing? And all you have to do is wait 6 weeks in a season when none of us think that they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, that's smart business. It's the correct way to operate, even if it's infuriating and it's a bad thing for baseball that exists.
And you know who would operate like that? The Tampa Bay Rays.
No
the
doubt.
Team where Chaim Bloom came from originally. Like, yeah, I could totally see where they decide to try and do this. Now, it gets a lot harder to kind of play off the noise when you've got Weatherholt, who, went 2 for 2 against Chris Sale over the weekend in a rehab start. But they could totally do. I mean, that's what I would love to see
JJ. I would love to see JJ Weatherholt. Don't get me wrong. If they decided 5 days from now, 6 days from now, whatever it is, that they would like to bring up JJ Weatherholt, I will celebrate the decision and I will be excited to watch him every day. Do I think that's likely? No. I think they've played their hand. I think they've shown it to all of us that they're not going to call him up most likely this season. And I also think if they do that there's a real chance he's not here on opening day next year unless he forces his way onto the roster. So
Even then, if you're them, just ignore the noise and just wait till. I mean, that's what the Cubs did with Chris Bryant. They waited to get that extra year of control.
And they're not alone. A lot of teams do this. It just became very obvious,
very clear on the Bryant
Cubs.
one.
But there are a lot of teams that hold these guys down longer than what you otherwise would expect. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll talk about all of this and so much more with Katie Wu, Cardinals insider for The Athletic. But next time for some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
I'm Dr. TJ from the Institute of Natural Health.
back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, got some big news in the NFL. Who could have seen this one coming? The Commanders and wide receiver Terry McLaurin have agreed to a 3-year extension worth more than $96 million. That's $32 million per season. In other words, you got the DK Metcalf deal.
Hey, good for him.
Why do these have to be so difficult? Why do teams have to make it so hard to get to the place that we all know where it's going, man? I really don't understand it. This one is more frustrating than most because Terry McLaurin has done everything you could ask for him. He's a wide receiver who played with crap quarterbacks almost the entirety of his career, finally gets a good one last year, and produced no matter who the quarterback was. Has been a good soldier. He's somebody you want to build around. Yes, he's a little bit older. Yes, it's probably a little more guaranteed money than you would like to pay. But what else are you going to do? You're the Commanders, dude. And you have a player now that is going to be built around your quarterback and be there for the next 3 seasons while your quarterback is making nothing. So this always made the most sense. I can't believe that it took this long. I can't believe that it was this hard to the point where he actually had to request a trade. Just crazy to me. But Terry McLaurin gets his new contract, 3 years, $96 million. T-Bone, what were your thoughts when you saw this today?
It was kind of like you, where I'm like, okay, I'm glad. One, first off, I'm glad this is over. But two, like, why did we need the whole song and dance? Oh, he's holding out. Oh, he's requesting the trade. And then you end up settling in on a contract deal that everybody knew was probably coming. Like, why not just get these things done? And they become a bigger storyline, which, one, I think the media makes too much of these things. But two, then the team has to hear it, right? Everybody's got to be asked about it inside your locker room. Your coach has to address questions on it constantly throughout the preseason and training camp to where it just becomes annoying. Just get these things done. You know you're going to do them. Why sit on your hands and wait? Same with the Cowboys. Jerry, you're going to sign Micah Parsons. You're going to get this contract extension done. We don't need him sleeping on the sideline during a preseason game.
How do we think that one gets done? Because this has all felt like a wrestling performance where it's all kind of setting up toward they're going to walk into the stadium together and then they're going to like have a signing in front of the media. I mean, it's got to be. It's Thursday night, dude. They're the season opening performance for the NFL. We're 3 days away from them traveling to Philadelphia to take on the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles. You know Jerry wants to take away some of that spotlight. He would love nothing more than to take away some of the spotlight from that pregame ceremony with the Eagles. There's an easy way to do that, and that is signing the contract on Thursday afternoon/evening in front of all of the media.
On Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah. I'm not telling you it's going to happen, but, dude, it would be very Jerry Jones if that's the way that this thing went down.
Oh, you're not worried about the back? There isn't a bulky back after all.
Yeah.
I love the song and dance there where, oh, yeah, he had an MRI, and, yeah, for the most part, it was quick. Oh, come on.
The pretzels help.
That's true.
Do you guys think it gets done?
The Parsons one? I'm not convinced it gets done before the Thursday night game next week. I think they're going to really draw this thing out. I can see where he sits out one game, and then they get the deal done.
1 week, Chris Jones style, not the same situation. Of course, I think that's what you see.
Cowboys get blown out.
That's the damage.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Jerry goes, oh, crap. Okay, yeah, we'll do it. Because I just watched the documentary on the Cowboys, and guess what? He's had this holdout issue even dating back to the 90s when he had it with Emmitt Smith. Didn't do it. He missed, I think it was 2 games. Cowboys go, I think it was either 1-1 or 0-2, and then Jerry panics and signs the deal.
He's 3 years here, guys. 3 years, remember?
Well, let's continue with some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario. Did you guys see all the hoopla about Shedeur Sanders over the weekend?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was against your Rams.
I know.
I'm so done with this storyline. Listen, man, I think Shedeur is a pretty good quarterback. I find it strange that I have to have more of an opinion than that on his 3 for 6 for 14-yard performance with 5 sacks in the game. I don't think that was exclusively on the offensive line when the other quarterbacks had the following statistics: 0 sacks, 1 sack, 0 sacks. Shedeur, 5 for 41. Did the offensive line just stop playing? Or does Shedeur have a bit of an issue with drifting in the pocket, which dates back to his college days, both at Colorado and before? Man, I find all of this to be so strange. I think Shedeur should have been drafted higher than he did. I think it's also entirely possible that teams didn't like the way that Shedeur acted in his pre-draft meetings with them.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. At the most important position from a leadership perspective, if like Aaron Rodgers in part dropped because, one, teams didn't really like him, and two, he had a really weird throwing motion that teams didn't believe in. So he dropped, yes, not as far as Shedeur, obviously, but dropped to the end of the first round when he was in consideration for the number 1 pick that year. This is not a new phenomenon. Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, teams stopped signing those two because there was going to be too much of a circus surrounding their backup or third string quarterback, and it wasn't worth it. This is happening now with Shedeur. Some of his biggest fans are making up these conspiracy theories as to what's going on with him and why is he not getting the final 2-minute drive. Guys, because they're handling him the way that they would any quarterback in his situation. He's probably going to make the team. He probably should make the team. And we'll see where it goes from here. But this Shedeur stuff, dude, I'm very excited for week 1 when we don't have to talk about this for, at least a month, probably?
Oh, I don't know if you're going to get a month in that. I mean, when Joe Flacco's the guy starting above him, let's be honest, the noise is going to continue to be there and last for quite a while. Look, I liked Shedeur in college. And, yes, he got hit a lot, and some of that was Deion didn't build no line around him. A lot of it, too, was what you said. He held onto the ball for a little too long.
Yeah, it's not every sack is created equally.
And that is his biggest problem. I mean, and you pointed out perfectly. He takes 5 sacks when all the other quarterbacks take 1. He's going to make the team. He's going to be the second or third string battling with Dylan Gabriel and I can't remember who the other, Kenny Pickett,
Tyler
maybe?
Huntley now, too.
Oh, yeah, Huntley. So he'll battle with those guys. He might get a start or two once you get into the season. They realize it's over and there's no need to play a 40-year-old Joe Flacco. But, yeah, he's going to have to go out there and earn it because this isn't college football where it's a little bit easier and you can play a little bit freer and hold on to the football a little bit longer, especially in the Big 12. You got to be quick with your decision process.
And he's not that.
No.
He's not. He takes a long time to get through his progressions. And, I mean, there were some breakdowns. If you want to go find them, they're readily available for you. There are great breakdowns on Twitter over the weekend of, hey, Shedeur has some stuff that he's got to fix, man. It's going to take some time before he becomes even a high-level starter, if that's in the range of outcomes for him.
Yeah, what goes down in college in the Big 12 as a 12-yard sack, hey, guess what? That's going to mushroom into a 24-yard loss, as we saw with the backpedaling in that particular performance. I thought it was interesting. If you're really looking at it, you're trying to take inventory of all of these different quarterbacks, and apparently Cleveland, at minimum, is going to be carrying forward going into the regular season. Whatever, I was frankly surprised that Dylan Gabriel enjoyed as much success in that game as he did. Take it for what it's worth, but we've seen ebbs and flows from both of these guys during the exhibition schedule, both Gabriel and Sanders. Enough with the charade, though, BK. I'm with you there. Let's just get through maybe a month-ish of Flacco. Who knows?
I like Dylan Gabriel. I liked him in college. Timon, we talked about this a number of times. I've always thought that Dylan Gabriel is a good quarterback. I was surprised he went before Shedeur Sanders in the draft, but I'm not surprised at all to see him having some success. He feels like a 10-year backup quarterback in the NFL.
100%.
Guy's going to get into the league. He's going to have some success. He does everything at a 6 out of 10 level, and he just have a 10-year career as he could be this era's version of what Chase Daniel was. You never want him to start, but he's always just a really solid backup quarterback.
Yeah, and I think his ceiling, I think I said this at the time he got drafted, he reminded me a lot of Penix, to where it's, hey, he doesn't really run, he's more of a pocket passer, gunslinger, but if he can make the decision quickly, that's probably what his ceiling could ultimately become.
I always thought Penix he's got a cannon of an arm. I don't see Dylan Gabriel as having that kind of upside. But I think Gabriel could be, just a really solid NFL back. Could he have the career that we have seen from Gardner Minshew? Sure. Yeah.
That's probably a good comp, yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know that he's exactly the same style. Minshew's a little bit of a wild child, but I think Dylan Gabriel could have a 10-year career where he starts, 4 games a year for a team, and they always want to upgrade from him whenever he is the starter. But then the following season, he gets a job elsewhere to make $6 million as a backup. It's a really good living to make.
Where is Gardner Minshew?
He's with Kansas City. He's a Chiefs backup right now. Yep.
Oh, wow.
It's Patrick Mahomes' backup. And that's what he can be. Somebody on the text line just brought up the exact same comparison. He's Gardner Minshew. And that's okay.
More
There's nothing wrong with that.
upside out of him, as far as you're concerned, BK, pro-wise for Gabriel than Sanders, though, because that's the narrative here for a lot of people. That seems to be the sticking point. Ceiling raiser.
No, I think Shedeur has more upside. I think Shedor's a better player. I think Shedeur is the guy that if you said, hey, which one's more likely to become a starting quarterback in the NFL? It's Shedeur for me, definitely. I think he's got more accuracy. I think he's got the better arm of the two. Shedeur also has more downside of could be out of the league in 5 years. Because I don't know that he's going to get this pocket presence stuff figured out. And I think that's the number one most, I've said this about Lamar. I think it's the number one most underrated aspect of an NFL quarterback's game. If you can't handle the pressure, and I'm talking about literally like as defensive lines are starting to encroach on you, you can't be an NFL starter, or it can limit what your ceiling is, especially in big games. It's been a huge problem for Lamar in his postseason.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
It's the sacks and it's the fumbles. And those are not things that we typically look at in the box score, but they really, really matter. And it's an underrated weakness in Shedeur Sanders' game. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. But next, Katie Wu, Cardinals Insider, joins us here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
Get signed up to play in this year's Fastlane Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Show off your football knowledge all season long and see if you can defeat the Fastlane and the dudes from the Rizzuto Show on the point for the weekly top score. It's the Fastlane and the Riz Show throwing down all football season long in the Pick'em Challenge. Get signed up to play now at 101ESPN.com. Brought to you by Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL. Easy to Sunday, easy to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly.
Rhino Shield is engineered to outlast paint by a lot. Backed with our 25...
Now listen to 101 ESPN On Demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Caminero brings the rain versus Redbirds. Good afternoon. It's Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Yesterday's Cardinals-Rays series finale was delayed more than 4 hours due to weather. Then Junior Caminero took center stage. Tampa Bay's all-star third baseman walloping a fifth-inning grand slam, vaulting his squad over St. Louis 7-2. Michael McGreevy will make appearance number 11 of 2025 tonight when last-place Pittsburgh hits town. First pitch scheduled for 6:45 p.m. Katie Wu helping us dive into said matchup next. This SportsCenter update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, we go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Cardinals insider for The Athletic. She dropped a mailbag earlier today. Her name is Katie Wu. She does fantastic work, and we enjoyed talking with her on Monday afternoons. Katie, appreciate the time. How you doing today?
What's up, guys? How are you? Happy Monday. A thrilling 4-game series against the Pirates awaits, but at least the weather's good.
Yeah, weather's fantastic. You get to go to Miami, Tampa. Now you come back home. The weather's beautiful here in St. Louis. Not too bad, Katie.
Well, I chose well. I actually skipped Tampa and missed a 4.5-hour rain delay, so I feel like I already won, to be honest.
Good work by you. So, out of curiosity, you missed the delay, but I would assume you saw most of the games over the weekend. Our open today was basically, what was I supposed to take away from that 3-game series? So, I'll go ahead and ask you, did you take anything of substance away from the 3 games that they played in Tampa Bay?
Look, it was not a good series, right? And I thought Sunday, not just because of the rain delay, which was exhausting enough, but just the performance of that game. And granted, I wasn't there, so I'm not there to take the pulse of the clubhouse and see how the actual feeling was. I think as we go forward through this next final month of the season, we're really going to have to focus on individual performances. And that's kind of the nature of what we were going to get at after the trade deadline. The Cardinals did a nice job of playing competitive ball for a little bit after that. But the focus is firmly on 2026 and beyond. So we're looking at, again, individual players and what they can prove in the final month. And there are several players who have, either taken advantage of their situation in their season, like Ivan Herrera and Alec Burleson, and to an extent, Nolan Gorman, who is, I think, having a much more productive second half overall. And then there are guys like Jordan Walker and Lars Nootbaar, who are maybe feeling some pressure to really perform in the final weeks of the season before the Cardinals make a decision on what their future looks like. Guys, we've talked all season about the roster construction, the redundancy in positions, the fact that the Cardinals have several left-handed bats and not a lot of ways to play them, several corner outfielders, who aren't really natural corner outfielders but play there because of necessity. I would imagine that should be at least the first thing that's addressed over the offseason, which is why these individual performances matter so much in September.
And Katie, you mentioned Ivan Herrera, and he's had a successful year, but I did want to get your thoughts. Since returning from the IL, he's hitting just .233. He has just 2 doubles and 2 home runs in that 35-game stretch. What have you made of his struggle since coming back from the IL?
I mean, that's going to happen, right? No different than what we've talked about when Burleson went through a little bit of a slump, Gorman. Like, the point of this season is for the Cardinals to get an entire season's worth evaluation of these players so they know what to count on for the future. We're not just looking at what a player does in the first 8 weeks or what he does in the first half or second half. We're looking at what a player does, hopefully, throughout the course of the entire season. And a lot of these guys are getting that opportunity for the very first time in their career. So there are going to be ebbs and flows and ups and downs, especially offensively. With Herrera, we've seen him have a ton of success at the plate, and now we're seeing him struggle a little bit. But what's more important to me is how he recovers from this, how he adjusts to the adjustments that are being made against him. He's a true hitter. I think the Cardinals have some real right-handed consistency with Herrera there. But, of course, there are going to be some slumps as the league starts to figure out who he is as a consistent major league hitter. So I'm not all too concerned about the August production of Herrera. I would like, and I'm sure the Cardinals would like this as well, to see how he turns it around and starts adjusting to the adjustments made to him, because I think the Cardinals, as they look to 2026, feel pretty confident about who Ivan Herrera is as a hitter, at least.
Katie, the news yesterday was that Mason Wynn is dealing with this knee issue still. It sounds like he's going to get an MRI, some kind of imaging today. If he were to have to go on the IL, Katie, and I'm asking you to speculate here, I understand that's a tough thing to do in your situation, but Do you think that would be the opening that the Cardinals would need to call up J.J. Weatherholt, or is somebody like a Cesar Prieto more likely to get that call in your mind?
I mean, from a fan perspective, that's what I would want. I think from a fan perspective, let's back up. You hope Mason Wynn is healthy. I know that he's been playing through some knee pain in the second half. This, I think, will be his second MRI in the last 2 months. I wasn't there, but he sounded to reporters in Tampa that he was optimistic that this wouldn't cost him a lot of time. But if it does, if you're looking at the future, then I would understand why fans would want J.J. Weatherholt up there. Honestly, candidly, I would like to see J.J. Weatherholt at the major league level. But this is so much more complex other than a guy, a top prospect, a first-round pick who is tearing the cover off the ball at Memphis, right? We have to look at how this business is going to be run. As an organization, John Mozeliak is making the major league roster decisions. We know this. But J.J. Weatherholt's service time and clock, that's a Chaim Bloom call because Chaim is going to be the one overseeing his early career. So it's complicated enough already because you have sort of two front offices and a player stuck right in the middle of that. We've also discussed this before. It's not a protection year for J.J. Weatherholt. It's a protection year for several players. And when it comes to the 40-man roster, my counter argument to that is if you look at the Cardinals' 40-man roster right now, there are plenty of spots that could be available by moving players off of it. That's a whole separate conversation. But this does come into play, especially when you're talking about a player with as much potential and as high of a ceiling as Weatherholt. So from a fan perspective, if Mason Wynn is unavailable and you have an opportunity for someone to play every day at shortstop, why not see J.J. Weatherholt? Of course, guys, though, it's never that easy, and there are bigger picture organization things that don't even have to deal with him fully that both Mo and Chaim Bloom will have to consider.
Cesar Prieto it is.
Oh, man.
I don't know, guys. I don't know. I haven't checked up on it. I'm just, as we think about how the Cardinals usually run and how these decisions are made, we have to consider those things.
Yeah.
Although I'm still Team Weatherholt, for sure.
We said the same thing earlier today. Would love to see J.J. Weatherholt, likely probably somebody else.
So, like, should I not get my Quinn Matthews jersey yet and have him called up in September? I mean, the rotation's leaking oil. They could use someone to piggyback along with, like, three of their starters. So you think Aaron Wilkerson's coming up instead of Quinn Matthews to help him out?
I would actually counter with Curtis Taylor.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer. He was good Saturday night.
He was, and actually both of us pretty well. They're just not names that necessarily excite the fans. So I get it, Cardinals fans. I know we're just kind of rolling through the punches together.
We're talking to Katie Wu here on 101 ESPN. All right, Katie, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on today. I want to give you the first crack at it. When you look back at the Willson Contreras signing, because he had another pretty good weekend offensively for the Cardinals, he's had a really good year offensively. How do you think that contract is going to be remembered among Cardinals fans? They've still got one more year on it. He's still probably going to be here. It doesn't sound like he wants to go anywhere else. How do you think that contract should or will be remembered?
I think it's easy to say from an outside perspective that it's a little weird, right? Because you signed him to be the long-term catcher of the future. That was a direct sentence used at his press conference. And he caught for 2 full seasons, the first of which he was actually booted from behind the plate for the sake of keeping the rotation happy. Whether that's fair or not, we can go back and forth on that. But, you know, for that being at the time, I think the largest free agent contract signing in a considerable time for St. Louis, you're at least getting what you know in Contreras, which is that he was a bat-first player, regardless of what position he's played in. And I think he's, when healthy, performed basically to what the Cardinals have expected him to do. He hasn't had a lot of help offensively the last couple of seasons, but I don't really think he can control that, nor is that fair to pin on him entirely. The move to first base, I think he's handled it about as well as he could. I think the defense has looked a little bit better than maybe most of us have thought. And more so, I think he's been consistent. He's been during a very trying time. I mean, since he's come to St. Louis, the organization has been in kind of a downhill spiral. He's been a positive reinforcement for the fans because he plays for the city, he plays for the team, he's fiery, he's passionate. All those things really matter in this town and should matter to Cardinals fans. Overall, I don't really have any concerns or complaints or hot takes about the signing. Sometimes, you know, when you are signing a catcher of the future, you would like to see him there behind the plate. Given the amount of depth the Cardinals have actually at that position, both major league and minor leagues, I can understand why they made the move, especially if he wasn't going to waive his no-trade clause. I don't really think it was a bad signing. I don't think it was a super signing, but all in all, no issues with it.
Katie, there are 3 big contracts that will be on the book going into next year. Contreras, who we just talked about, Sonny Gray, and then Nolan Arenado. If I set that over-under at 1.5 for them to be here next year, would you take the over or under?
I'll preface this with my speculation, and my speculation would lead me to hammer the over. I would expect Contreras to stay here next year because he's said as much. He's given no inclination that he'd like to leave. When you look at the contractual numbers, and we'll discuss this in Mailbag Part 2 that drops tomorrow, for Sonny Gray in particular, they backloaded his contract, which was smart at the time. Just $10 million in 2024, $25 million in 2025. He'll make $35 million in 2026, and that is not counting the $30 million club option the team has in 2027. I can't really imagine Cardinals ownership paying $35 million for one pitcher, especially when they have, we're looking at a recession in payroll when you just look at the attendance. When you look at what this organization is, looks to be a lengthy rebuild. I mean, look at Heim's contract. It's a 6-year deal. So this is clearly not something ownership expects to be fixed over an off season. Sonny Gray, of course, has a no trade clause, so we'll see if he's interested in waiving it. I'm not sure. He'll be 36 next year. I wonder if the allure of pitching in competitive games is something that draws to him. I think there are very few places he would go at this point, but I certainly think it's not off the table. When it comes to Nolan Arenado, we've said this before all offseason, so at the risk of sounding naive, I fully expect him to be traded. It won't be easy as well. I just, again, can't picture the Cardinals paying, I think, 2 years, over $40 million remaining. I don't think it'll be a salary dump, but this organization, if they want to trade Arenado, which would be better for both the team and the player, they're going to have to eat some money. Nolan, I know, has been hurt for most of the second half. Didn't also do a great job in increasing his trade value. He'd be the first to say that offensive production is not going to do much for a team looking to acquire him. Defense has been great, but if the Cardinals really want to move Arenado, they're either going to have to take on more money, which they were not willing to do this offseason, or throw in another player and kind of sweeten the pot a little bit.
All right, Katie, can I give you one more question kind of out of left field real quick?
Yes, go for it.
All right. Zach Wheeler, it was announced yesterday, is going to be out for the next 6 to 8 months, and we don't really know if he for sure will be able to get back onto a big league mound. The surgery that he's getting, the thoracic outlet syndrome surgery, is something that has ended a lot of careers in Major League Baseball, most notably here in St. Louis. It was something that led to the end of Chris Carpenter's career. Zach Wheeler is 35. In his major league career, he has exactly 0 Cy Young awards, and he's only been to a few All-Star games. But Zach Wheeler is one of the very few legit aces in Major League Baseball over the last 5 to 7 years. In your mind, is Zach Wheeler a Hall of Famer?
Oh, that's a really good question. You weren't kidding about left field. You know what? I'm not super versed in the entire history of Zach Wheeler's career,
sure,
but I think there's something to be said about being one of the true pure aces in this game, because this isn't like how it was 10 years ago, where it seems like almost every team had a true number one ace that you knew was going to be a high marquee matchup. And you knew, like, you could go through teams and say, okay, the Dodgers, here's your ace. The Cardinals, here's your ace. The teams don't have that anymore. But for the Phillies, they did with Zach Wheeler. So I would say off the top of my head, my gut feeling tells me yes. I know, like, we'll go off awards, we'll go off all of that, all-star selections. But for what he's done in an era where the ace is kind of dying, essentially, the fact that he's been able to remain one in Philly and continue to produce and pitch when it matters specifically, you're not just talking about a guy who goes out there and does okay in the regular season. I think his postseason success speaks for himself. I would go for it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I have a low bar, though, especially for pitchers in the modern game. I find him to be a really fascinating case study. Him and Mad Bum, to me, are the two guys that I find to be most interesting as their Hall of Fame conversations start to come up, because they're not traditional Hall of Famers, but they go about it in a different way, and both of them might be like the modern version of what a Hall of Fame pitcher looks like.
I like the Madison Bumgarner comparison, and that's not just because I watched him give the team I grew up for 2 World Series. But I think that's a very fair comp, because what he did, what Madison Bumgarner did during his time in the early 2010s, Cardinals fans obviously know this as well, was unprecedented and didn't happen. It's still one of the most, in 2014 especially, historic things we've seen from a pitcher in all of baseball. So I'm not a Hall of Fame voter. I still have 4 more years before hopefully I'm eligible to be one. But I am I'm not a small hall girl. I think that the more that this sport evolves and the industry evolves, the more writers and voters have to do as well. And how we voted 20 years ago probably shouldn't be how we're voting today.
And it literally can't be, because otherwise we're not going to get any pitchers into the Hall of Fame for the rest of our lives.
Bad.
Katie, appreciate the time as always. We'll be reading your mailbag tomorrow over on The Athletic. People can read the first portion of that today. All the best. We'll talk with you again next week.
You got it, guys. Have a great week.
Absolutely. That's Katie Wu joining us as she does each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate her time as always. We'll give you our thoughts on another conversation about the Major League Baseball, kind of a big picture thing, and whether or not the postseason should account for a significant part of a player's Hall of Fame status. But T-Bone, we were going to talk about this a little bit earlier today, and then eventually, we got the news that City SC has fired what is effectively their president of soccer operations. Do you think Zach Wheeler should be a Hall of Famer?
He's a tough one for me. I lean towards no. I just don't know that he's got the awards that you would want to back up the resume of a Hall of Famer, which is weird to say considering I would call him the ace of the Philadelphia Phillies. But I think the hardware stuff matters, and I think that's going to be the biggest driving force when we're talking about Hall of Fame cases moving forward, because there is no longer the idea of getting up to like 300 wins, for example, and stuff like that. So I think it comes down to, okay, where did you end up getting in terms of the awards? And he has 2 top 5 finishes in the Cy Young. Now, both of those were second-place finishes, and there's an argument to be had he should have won the one in 2021. But I lean towards right now that, no, he probably is not a Hall of Famer in my book. Yeah. But I'm not a small Hall guy either.
Yeah, I look back at it. So since 2010, you're talking about a 15-year stretch now. Zach Wheeler, if you're looking at wins above replacement, is tied for 8th. I'm just using this as a reference point. I'm not saying that's the end-all, be-all. But the players in front of him, Clayton Kershaw, we would agree, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer. Same thing for Max Scherzer. Same thing for Justin Verlander. 4th on this list is Chris Sale. I think Chris Sale is a no-doubt Hall of Famer, personally. And then behind him, it's Zach Greinke. And then that's where it gets a little more interesting. Jacob deGrom at 6th. I don't know what the Hall of Fame voters are going to do with him, because his peak is as good as any pitcher that I've watched in the last 2 decades. But it was very short, and we'll see what the next 3 to 5 years of his career looks like and whether or not he can continue to make the case for it. Garrett Cole is after him. I think he's probably a Hall of Famer, but these injuries keep piling up for him. David Price, I think, is probably not a Hall of Famer. And if you're arguing against Zach Wheeler, it is probably this. His career since 2010 is almost a mirror image of David Price's career. So how could I consider Wheeler to be one and Price not to be? That would be the argument against what I'm saying. This is a feel thing, and I'm not a feel guy. I feel better when Zach Wheeler is on the mound than I did when David Price was on the mound. I can't explain that. I can't tell you if that is fair or not. But for me, as I watched those 2 respective careers, Wheeler felt more like an ace to me, a traditional ace than David Price did. So those are the 2 that I think will be very interesting from this era.
Yeah,
and then I would throw in, if you want to, Madison Bumgarner as well. But nothing about his regular season career will suggest that he's a Hall of Famer.
The postseason that carries weight.
It is purely whether or not you think that his playoff success, 3 years of it, I think, is worthy of getting him into the Hall.
Yeah, and again, I go back to, I think awards are going to be a big driving force of this. And I don't really remember much of Price. I do remember him a little bit with Tampa Bay. I mostly remember him getting traded from Tampa Bay. But he won a Cy Young. I mean, his incredible year in 2012 where he's an all-star, finishes 12th in MVP voting, wins the Cy Young with a 2.56 ERA.
He had a few amazing seasons.
That right there, on top of like his 7-year peak, I would say, is probably the thing that will drive him in. And then it just comes down to like, Wheeler's the guy, like, how much does it hurt him that he did not end up with that Cy Young award? But then does the postseason lift him up? Because he was a stud in their postseason runs when the Phillies got there.
So you think Price is?
I would lean towards probably. I don't feel great about that answer because I am a small Hall guy.
It's tough, man. These pitching conversations are going to be really, really difficult. It's why Waino will potentially like start to work his way into the actual conversation about whether he's a Hall of Famer. I would personally lean no there. I know that's not going to win me any fans over by talking about that on the radio here in St. Louis, but I personally lean no on Waino. But that's kind of the cutoff of where you start to get into, is this guy or isn't this guy? Is it worthy or not? It's going to have to be a lower bar to clear than it has been for all of Major League Baseball history once we start getting into guys that primarily pitched in 2010 and beyond. He's T-Bone, that's Bradford, I'm BK. Coming up next, time for the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN.
The MLB is on ESPN Saturday. Guardians and Mariners. Pregame at 5:30. First pitch at 6:15. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN.
T-Bone here to tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, which is coming soon here to the Show Me State. Later this football season, you'll be able to bet same-game parlays, money lines, props, and more right here in Missouri. Whether you're backing Kansas City to dominate on Sundays or sweating your hockey picks, DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you want to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action. All right from your phone. And when DraftKings Sportsbook goes live here in Missouri, you'll be betting from home with the top-rated sportsbook trusted by millions. Safe, secure, and ready to deliver the action like never before. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my code 101WXOS now to gear up for launch in Missouri and be first in line for exclusive promos and can't-miss offers. That's code 101WXOS in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Subject to regulatory licensing requirements.
Enter to win for a huge party pack of sliders and fries from Small's Sliders right now at 101ESPN.com. Small's Sliders is famous for serving up the freshest cooked-to-order cheeseburger sliders, crispy seasoned waffle fries, and they have even teamed up with Dr. Pepper for the brand new Dr. Pepper Swirl Shake, available for a limited time. Now with 2 locations in Bridgeton and their newest spot located at 15751 Manchester Road in Ellisville. Get entered to win that delicious party pack of sliders and fries from Small Sliders right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Put up the poll on my Twitter account. Is Zach Wheeler a future Hall of Famer? Is David Price a future Hall of Famer? I'm going to put one more up. Is Madison Bumgarner a future Hall of Famer? And then just for, to see where you guys are at, is Nathan Eovaldi future Hall of Famer? I think the answer to that one is pretty clearly a no, but we'll get into it coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. No. You thought Bumgarner was a clear no?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Am I wrong?
We disagree on that one, but we can talk about that in just a little bit. All right, T-Bone.
I may have understated Bumgarner.
So I was talking to one of my wife's family members over the weekend. She works in a school district. And I don't know if you've seen, but they have, Bradford, you're probably familiar with your kids. They have outlawed phones in schools in the state of Missouri this year.
Oh, yeah.
How is it going for your kids, Bradford?
Actually, well, let's clarify first. Only one is still at the high school level, so drastically different situation. Last year, it would have affected both. One has since moved on to college, but at the high school level...
Bradford, you've got a college kid?
Yeah, I just revealed it all, didn't I?
My
yes,
God,
I did.
man.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Grow up in a hurry, right? No, but in any event, quite honestly, it has gone phenomenally well because, well, so much of it has to do, it's not just an individual personal thing. It's about managing expectations from a certain point in time. Fortunately, the youngest has been really, really good at that. So
it's gone well.
Very well.
I have heard the same thing. Apparently, the kids are fine with this. They get to school, they immediately have to put the phones away. Can't have them out. If you get seen with your phone, hey, put that away, right? It's not like you're immediately written up, in school suspension. No, it's, hey, we gotta put those away. Ah, man, I forgot. I'm so sorry. Because it's a transition, right? Everybody's going through this together. What I understand, again, I'm not in schools, but my understanding is the lunchroom used to be silent. Like, you'd walk in there, and T-Bone, I don't know how it was when you were in school, but when I was in school, Bradford, probably the same for you. We're both ancient compared to T-Bone.
True.
You'd walk into the lunchroom, it'd be loud as hell because everybody's talking, right? But we didn't have the phones. Now, everybody's sitting there on their phone, head down, just looking at their phone the whole time. Nobody's talking with one another. Apparently this year, the lunchroom is loud again. Kids are talking to one another. They're realizing, like, oh, we're all together with this. We can still have a conversation. And so it's going apparently very well. So I bring this up because this family member said, as she was walking the halls the other day, one of the kids came up and she had her phone out. She told her, hey, put that away, blah, blah, blah. She said, you know, kids are getting around this, right? She said, what do you mean?
Oh,
well, kids are getting around the fact that they aren't allowed to have their phones anymore. She's like, okay, well, what's going on? Help me understand. Well, they're talking to each other now. Yeah, I think that's right.
Oh, that's not at all what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say they're like sneaking them to the bathroom and like that's where they're going.
I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But she's like, yeah, you know, I'm happy to hear that. That sounds great. She's like, I can't wait to find a kid passing a note in class. Because that's going to be what they have to do, right? Yeah, you can't just text back and forth. Now you're getting back to what it was when we were in school once again.
Boom.
It's wonderful. I bring this up in part because I found it to be interesting. Last week was kind of one of the first weeks of school, but also apparently Japan is now proposing 2-hour daily limits for smartphone use, not just for kids, but for everybody. So I'll be really interested to see, next 20 to 50 years, what does this look like? Do we realize there were some unintended consequences of us being on technology all day, every day? And do we start to snap that back a bit? That is not something I'm proposing. I am genuinely curious kind of what this looks like in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
Yeah, it's funny because I am thinking back to this because when I was in high school, the lunchroom was kind of started to get to the point where it got quiet. Middle school, it wasn't bad, but we didn't have, I think that was just when, Instagram was starting to take off, Snap was starting to take off, so it was a little different. But I do remember, in high school, there was one teacher, I can't remember her name, but she was an English teacher. You'd think I'd be better with my theirs. But she was the one that required us to put
I'm not blaming your teacher, that's on you.
I wasn't blaming her either, but what I was saying is, she was the only one that required us to put our phones, in a thing that was on the wall, where you put it there, and it's just like this, where you can't use it in class. And I don't remember it being that bad. But great, I also, if I didn't have my phone, it wouldn't be that big of an issue either. So, yeah. I don't know.
Apparently,
it's
the parents that are problematic more so than the kids.
Yes.
Because apparently parents are going to the school and they're saying, hey, I can't get in touch with my kid. They're like, then reach out to the school. Like, if there's an emergency, we will get in touch with your kid. We've been doing this for a really long time.
There's an office. Yeah. There's a secretary or 5.
You can call them.
Oh, my gosh.
And then guess what? They immediately call the teacher. There is a difference. The difference in time is roughly, 2 minutes of you calling the kid individually versus you calling the front desk. But, yeah, we can still make this work, guys. I was able to have my parents call the school, and if I needed to leave for whatever reason, there was an emergency that took place within the family, they came down, they got me, hey, Brandon, you need to go down to the principal's office, whatever, go ahead and grab your stuff, you're going to go home for the rest of the day. Cool, no problem, no harm, no foul. I guess it's a bit more problematic for some of the teachers, or for the parents, and they're relaying that to the teachers, and the teachers are taking the brunt of it.
Yeah. The kids are doing it so far.
We did get a couple of texts from teachers that say, it's been great. Kids love it. gives them a reason not to have to constantly check notifications, social media, etc. Another one, hey guys, I'm a teacher. The school cell phone ban has been a net positive for us. Kids are talking and even playing into and such at lunch. There's real conversations that are taking place. How about it? You love to see it.
You think these teachers listen to us like in gym right now?
Probably a planning hour would be my guess.
Planning hour. Oh, yeah, that makes more sense.
Be my assumption.
I was thinking like we were on like the loudspeakers, like we're like the ambiance noise for them.
My assumption would be they're either watching a video and they've got their headphones on while the kids are watching the video right now, or there's some kind of a planning hour or lunch taking place currently. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get into in or out. But next, when you look back at the Willson Contreras signing, how would you rate it? And would you have still gone back and done it over again if you could? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. 101 ESPN and Hubbard Radio St. Louis are proud to support the SSM Health Cardinal Glen and Sun Run, happening Sunday, October 12th in beautiful Forest Park. Lace up and make a difference by choosing the 5K or 1 mile walk and support world-class health care for more than 200,000 kids treated every year at Cardinal Glen and Children's Hospital. Make your miles matter. Get more details on the SSM Health Cardinal Glen and Sun Run now at 101ESPN.com.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, as I was watching the Cardinals over the weekend, it was very clear Willson Contreras remains their best hitter. And over the last 3 seasons, he's batting .265 with a .360 on-base percentage. And T-Bone, if you go by per 162 games, because last year, he only played 84. But if you go by the per 162 game averages for Willson Contreras since signing with the Cardinals, he has averaged 36 doubles and 27 home runs per season here in St. Louis. He has been incredibly productive, man. 28% above league average offensively. And yet, he was signed to be a catcher. He was supposed to be the heir apparent to Yadier Molina. They said, we want to go in a different direction. We want a little more offense behind the plate. And this was an opportunity for us to accomplish that. And he has not been the catcher this season. And really, almost immediately upon signing with the Cardinals, they didn't view him as the heir apparent to Yadier Molina. So if they could go back, if we knew then what we know now, do you think Willson Contreras would have still been a signing for the Cardinals? And do you think it was a net positive for the Cardinals to sign him?
I still think they would have or should have done it, and it is a net positive for the Cardinals because though, yes, I understand the argument of, hey, he was signed to be a future catcher. The other part of that was he was signed for offense. The Cardinals were looking for an offensive upgrade in 2023. Now, it was specific to the catcher spot, and I don't really know what you do with him with Paul Goldschmidt here, but I would just make him the DH then if you said, hey, he couldn't catch. Because, I mean, you read off those offensive numbers. That's a really good player to have. That's 28% above league average over 3 years here in St. Louis. That's a guy that can help you in your offense when you were in a winning window, which the Cardinals thought they were in. The fact that he got moved off of the catcher position wasn't a fault to Willson Contreras. Anybody in baseball knew Willson Contreras wasn't a great defensive catcher. The only one that didn't know it was apparently the Cardinals and John Mozeliak. So I put that blame on the Cardinals organization for not knowing what they were signing. I still think this has been an excellent signing for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I personally would go back and do it again if we were going back into that 2023 offseason.
Can I tell you some players that Willson Contreras has been more productive than over the last 3 seasons?
This is going to be a wild list.
Max Muncy, Cal Raleigh, Seiya Suzuki, Alex Bregman. We can continue from here. Francisco Lindor, Corbin Carroll, Byron Buxton, Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Jarren Duran, Randy Arozarena, Austin Riley, Jackson Chourio, Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, you can continue with the list, but you get the idea. Among players that have taken at least 1,000 plate appearances since the start of the 2023 season, Willson Contreras is top 30, top 25, in fact, in offensive production. WRC plus is what I'm using here, but offensive production, whether it's OPS plus, WRC plus, whatever, he's been a hell of a hitter. And ultimately, that's what the Cardinals signed him for. I think the idea was always, he's a catcher until he's not, and when he's no longer a catcher, we've got the bat. That is the benefit of paying this style of catcher. Whereas if you pay for a defense-first catcher, you could end up in a situation where, the bat's gone, it's not as good as it once was, and the defense is starting to regress as well because it's really freaking hard to be good as long as Yadier Molina, for example, was defensively because the position hurts to play. And now you're just stuck with a position and a player that you don't want to be behind the plate anymore. Willson Contreras always had a backup plan. It was always, hey, he could move to first, he could be a DH. There were some thoughts about potentially in the outfield as well. He had that kind of versatility because of the bat. And I think there's a lesson to be learned here, T-Bone. Always veer toward the bat because the bat will play. You can find a new spot for it. Hell, the bat will have value to somebody else. Look at Rafael Devers. That guy stinks defensively, and he's got this huge bloated contract. But the Red Sox were able to move off of it. Why? Because another team valued the offensive production. That will always have value across the league. the defense first player that has that athleticism, dude, once that stuff goes, it is really hard to consistently have value in that. And it's why guys like Trevor Story, for example, or Dansby Swanson is another player that immediately comes to mind in this regard. I don't pay for that. I don't pay those years. I value it, especially when you're on your rookie or arbitration level contract. But later on, I value guys like Willson Contreras. I absolutely would have done this over again.
Yeah, and you mentioned the defensive catcher. It was a different offseason, but he was talked about, I remember, going in towards the back end of Yachty's career. James McCann, remember him? Big free agent catcher, was like one of the top on the market. Signed a 4-year, $40.6 million deal with the Mets, which not, in hindsight, a bad deal at all. And James McCann, in that time frame, played 2 seasons, was a minus .4 in WAR, 220, 282, 328, 30% below league average, and the Mets said, okay, this defense isn't worth it for us, and they ended up trading him away to Baltimore and ended up just shipping the contract out of town. Yeah, I agree with you. I would always lean towards bat first because you can figure out where to get these guys in the order. I mean, I look at the Cardinals' current roster now. Look, it's not ideal, but Ivan Herrera, bat first guy, was a catcher, clearly not a good defensive catcher based on everything they would tell you, and you could look at it. He just couldn't catch guys stealing. Terrible when it came to his arm of getting the ball down to second base. Okay, well, find him a position, right? They're throwing him out in left field. Okay, that's fine. I've seen, like, Matt Holliday roaming around left field, who was a good defender, but he wasn't great. He was no gold glove guy. I saw Ozuna out there. That one was bad. But, like, you can get away with these kind of things and try and place these guys in different positions and teach them new spots. I still think that the Contreras signing was a good one because of that, because it's hard to develop a guy that's 30% above league average, 28% above league average with his offense. It's easy to develop the guy that plays gold glove, not gold glove, but good defense that you can play somewhere. It's easier than it is to find the guy that can hit at an elite level like Contreras.
Look at what gets paid. Just go to the market, right? Who are the guys that get paid? They're the guys that hit the way that Willson Contreras does. So looking back on that signing, he's been worth every penny that they paid for him. I'm totally cool with him being here again next year. I think people have overstated the need to get rid of this money. Man, it ain't my money, first of all. Second of all, they're not just going to like reinvest that money into the team. Would I rather watch the Cardinals with Willson Contreras on it or with him elsewhere and them getting, pennies for the dollar? Because he's got a full no trade clause and will probably only go to 1 or 2 other teams. I'd rather have Willson Contreras here.
Agreed.
For me, the same thing is true for Sonny Gray. If they were going to replace him with somebody that I thought would come in and like have the same kind of upside as a Sonny Gray, sure, yeah, trade him. That's fine, cool. Especially if you're going to get a haul in return. But yeah, it's too much. You're paying him $35 million next year to be a part of this team. I'd rather watch Sonny Gray pitch than Andrew Heaney, though. If that's my choice, I mean, it's a no contest for me. And $35 million, dude, again, not my money. They're either going to have to pay for that for Sonny Gray or they'll pay for it for nobody. So, yeah, I'll just keep the Sonny Gray experience. Keep that thing churning. Let's see what that looks like next year. And then maybe you trade him at the deadline and get something of significance in return, if that's a possibility for you. With T-Bone and Bradford on BK, in or out coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a free pair of passes to Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Friday Night Live is back this Friday night at Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Find more details and find that chance to win a pair of free passes right now at 101ESPN.com or your 101 mobile app.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. All right, T-Bone, let's start out with this one. In or out, there will be at least 3 AFC West teams that make it to the playoffs this year.
Ooh, that's a good one.
There were 3 that made it last year: Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos. In or out, there will be 3 this season. So the NFC North was the only other team last year to get 3 teams into the postseason.
So I think, Bills will win the East again. Baltimore will win the North. Somebody's got to win the South. And then... I'm going to say in. I could see where you end up with 2 more as wild card teams, because the only other teams that I look at that I kind of view as potentially in that spot, Cincinnati, they can't stop anybody. Pittsburgh, ugh. Miami, ugh. And nobody else really taking another step forward for me. I'll say in. I think they will end up sending 3 teams to the playoffs again this year.
I am totally in as well. I don't see a drop-off. If anything, I see improvement, basically, from both the Chargers and maybe the Broncos. I am not as bullish on that offense in particular. Love the defense. Take nothing away from that. And Sean Payton another year to establish his program in the Mile High City. I like all of those teams. And if one team is going to really dip out of the proceedings, in my opinion, in that conference, I am dead set on Pittsburgh. Not one of these 3.
I'm in. I think you'll get at least 3. I am struggling with which 3 right now. I'm toying with the idea that I'm going to be really high on the Raiders this year.
I'm debating if this is the year the Chiefs fall off.
Are you?
Well, I thought maybe that was you.
No. Oh. I think that the Raiders have a real chance this season, not only to surprise some people, but to win 10 games the way that the Broncos did a year ago. I think Pete Carroll gets underrated for just how good of a head coach he is. He is going to bring that team to a baseline level of competency, very similar to what Sean Payton did in year 1 with the Denver Broncos. Do you remember that first season? They were not a very good team. Denver went 8-9 that year with Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback, and he was atrocious. And all year long, you knew Sean Payton so badly wanted anybody else to start at the quarterback position for him. And then last year, he gets somebody new, and they end up being pretty decent. I think Geno's a really solid quarterback, man. So I think at least 3 of these teams will get in. And I'm toying with the idea that the Chargers are the one that miss. I'm toying with it. Not all the way there yet, but I'm toying with it.
They're the one, if the Raiders do get to what you're talking about, they're the one for me that would fall off of that.
I think so,
Just
too.
because Harbaugh loves playing Iowa-style football at the NFL level, and
it works. That's the thing that's so frustrating.
I don't want it to work. Okay, yeah. I don't enjoy the Chargers. Were not fun to watch last year, in my opinion. Even though I love their quarterback.
But Justin Herbert, the tools. Eventually, they're going to manifest themselves.
Yeah, we'll see.
But when you run the damn ball, I'm just out. Okay,
T-Bone,
guys, in or out? Week 1 college football coming up this weekend. We will see a top 25 team lose to an unranked team this weekend.
Oh, an unranked team. Okay.
My goodness.
Boise is only a 6.5-point favorite against South Florida, by the way.
Feels weird.
Anybody want to explain that one to me? No?
South Florida's returning a lot of production, I think. So,
does anybody know much of anybody on the Boise roster without Genty? It's a fair question, seriously.
Their quarterback's back, isn't he?
Nationally,
I can't remember his name, but he's back.
So, I've got one for you. How about Syracuse over Tennessee?
That's the one that I've been looking at.
Love it.
I'm not telling you that it's going to happen, but I will tell you that Syracuse won 10 games a year ago. And Tennessee, I believe, got significantly worse on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense should still be quite good. 13.5-point line. If I was going to say, hey, this team, this top 25 team, will get beat head-to-head against a unranked opponent, I would probably put that one as the one. 11 a.m. ABC. Everybody's going to have their attention on Texas versus Ohio State. And then we'll get to 1 o'clock. We'll all look at the score bug on the bottom and see, hold on. Syracuse is up 23-20 on Tennessee with 4 minutes to go. That's the one that I would pinpoint. So I'll say in for the hell of it just because I'm rooting for it. But that would be the game that I would pinpoint.
I'll go for it as well. I have not been optimistic whatsoever in the last couple of months about those Vols. Now, I'm not exactly believing in the new QB for that particular squad, Syracuse, either, in Ricky Collins, but you like the job that Fran Brown has done there in the last couple of years. I do think that one, absolutely, that one is there for the taking. If the shoe were on the other foot, if you were talking about a different setting, believe it or not, for New Mexico, Michigan, I may be inclined to go with New Mexico, but it is at the Big House, so let's be safe here. I'm serious. Bryce Underwood, whatever, hey. I'll be safe.
35-point line. Bradford, do it. Put it down.
Yeah.
Put the money down.
Had a pretty good week 0. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay, sure. You were 1-0. We were 0-1. But I would bet on Michigan winning that one and covering. I'm going to say out. I think there's only like 3 games you can pinpoint. Technically, South Florida, Boise State. But, I don't think Virginia Tech's got a chance against South Carolina. That's a Sunday night game. You've got all the other non-powers that are playing these big-time schools. Florida State, Alabama, I know, it's on ABC. That's going to be a blowout. Alabama's going to kill Florida State. And I like Syracuse, but they had to go to the transfer portal and get another quarterback. I'm kind of skeptical on it. I think that game will be close. I would take them plus 13.5. But I do think you're going to see Tennessee end up winning that. So I'm going to say out. I don't think you're going to see a non-ranked team take down a top 25 team this week.
Bradford?
All right, elsewhere around baseball over the weekend, guys, in a contest that didn't demand 7 hours of your time, Cal Raleigh slugging his 48th and 49 dingers of the year, breaking that single-season record held by Salvi Perez. BK, sorry, I'll move beyond that. We've got a two-parter here. In or out? Cal Raleigh ends up mashing beyond 55-plus homers. And number 2, he wrestles the MVP away from Aaron Judge.
We're getting to the place now where it's at least a conversation. 2 reasons. One, Judge had the injury and has spent most of the second half of the season as a DH, which takes away some of that defensive value and brings that back to the forefront of the conversation in favor of Cal Raleigh. Oh my God, the value of a defensive catcher as good as Cal Raleigh is, where at a minimum he's above average, that is so much more valuable than defensively what Aaron Judge has brought to the table in the second half, which is basically nothing. And then you look at the overall value for a wins above replacement metric, it's the same right now. They are both at the exact same number at 7.3 according to Fangraphs. Offensive production is skewed in favor of Aaron Judge, but the traditional number of the 49 home runs, 106 RBIs, those are now in favor of Cal Raleigh. I say all of that to say this. I completely dismissed this idea as recently as a month ago. I thought it was crazy to suggest that Cal Raleigh could win the MVP. I think Cal Raleigh is going to win the MVP. I think we are now there. A catcher doing this, breaking that record. He has been the story of the season. I thought that could be the case when he had the home run derby night. I know that's a weird thing to say. That shouldn't be something that wins you an MVP, for example, but it gives you buzz. And ultimately, this is a narrative award when it's this close. I think he has the narrative on his side. I think Cal Raleigh will be your American League MVP this season.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say in as well. And BK brought this to my attention last week, I think, in the office, because we were kind of talking about the MVP race. He said, man, he's really struggling in the second half. And he looked, it's 216, the batting average, 286 on base. But then you look and he's got 11 home runs and he's slugging 485 and he's 7% above league average because when he does hit the ball, big man hit ball far. It's going to cover up some of his struggles. The fact that he is still hitting for home runs. I'm in. I think he'll surpass the 55 number that you laid out there, Bradford. I think he'll win the MVP because he's a catcher, because there should be more value placed on, hey, this guy is also behind the plate, taking a beating, taking foul tips, and he's hitting 50-plus home runs. I think he will win the MVP.
Yes, on both fronts, because he broke the single-season record at his position on August the 24th. Seattle, a mere 2 games now, back in the AL West from Houston. Absolutely, he's doing his thing.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on 101 ESPN. By the way, we don't have to do this today, but in or out, Trey Turner is making a case for National League MVP. Have you seen the numbers that he's putting up?
No, but
what a hell of a year for Trey Turner.
Quietly, if you can.
15 homers, He's scored 90 runs, 32 stolen bases. He's hitting 300 on the season. His WAR is basically the same at this point as Shohei Ohtani. Trey Turner quietly putting together a really good season that will probably get him at least some votes.
Yeah, he'll get votes. I wouldn't hear the conversation on him in the MVP. He's not pitching.
Sure.
He's back to being elite, though. Flat out elite.
True. Yes, that is true. I can't take that away from him.
All right, from the 636 in or out, Mizzou finishes the season ranked higher than Illinois.
Out. I think Mizzou's like 8-4. Illinois is going 9-3. So we'll be ranked.
In Big Ten apparently is really deep in the middle, and that's where Illinois will find themselves at the bottom of the middle. Right.
I'm in, because you know what? We talked about it earlier in the show. You were going to ride the horse aficionado, Ahmad Hardy. 2 great results in 2025. The quarterback situation, it is going to reveal itself shortly. That defense, too many people across the nation are sleeping on this defense. It is loaded at each and every level. There's a reason as to why Batoon just snagged that extension.
From the 618 in or out, we will see Jimmy Crooks in the month of September. I'm out.
I'm going to say out, but I could see where they convince themselves of that. You then just move Pozo to a pinch hit role, and you get some answers on if Jimmy Crooks is ready to be a backup. I can see how they get there. Yeah, I could see how they get there. I just don't know how they're going to position this. If they don't put Wynn on the IL, maybe they bring up Prado, as we were talking about, just as like insurance for him. I'll say out for now, but I could see where they do that.
I'm out for now as well. You love the fact that yesterday it wasn't just about Weatherholt, Crooks as well, reaching base 3 additional times. In or out next April. In next April, we see an appearance at the big league level from Jimmy Crooks.
Yeah, in.
Totally in. Okay.
I think he's your backup catcher next year.
I would agree. I'd say in. I think you put him on the 40-man this offseason because I think he's got to be protected from the Rule 5, and you use him as a backup. I don't see like Pozo being back, so you got to have a backup somewhere, and I think they could do it with Crooks.
Which is why you'd love to see just a teensy bit of him in September.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. Just saw this from Pro Football from Steve Palazzolo, his new podcast with Sam Monson. In or out, the Shedeur Sanders craze has eclipsed Tebow mania.
No, I'm out.
Their quote that was tweeted with this is, "We have reached that level and beyond with Shedeur Sanders." That's crazy to me. It's nowhere near where the hype was with Tebow at his absolute pinnacle. Dude, Tebow won on a walk-off, a playoff game. He threw a touchdown pass to, I think it was Demaryius Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, against the Pittsburgh Steelers to win a playoff game. No, man, this is not there. If Sanders does that, then we're going to have that hype, especially if he is replaced the following season or something crazy like that. But right now, it's a social media craze as much as anything else.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm out. Because I remember growing up, SportsCenter being all in, because when I got up in the morning, SportsCenter was what I would watch. And I can remember the coverage being Tim Tebow signs with the Jets, and it was like, oh, okay, what's his role? Like third string quarterback, Tim Tebow, and they might do some wildcat formations. We're not to that level yet for Sanders.
Also, listen, man. Shedeur's a good player. I said this earlier today. I think Shedeur gets underrated for how good of a quarterback he is. He is nowhere. Tebow might be the best college quarterback I've ever seen.
All-timer.
They are not on the same level. These comparisons are crazy. Tebow was a dominant college football player who is the face of one of the best eras of a program that we've seen in the last 25 years. Shedeur was a good college football player on a good program who was the second best player on his own team.
Well, and Shedeur wasn't even the face of that program, not just because of Travis Hunter.
I just said.
Well, I think Deion was the face of the program. It was more of his dad was the face of the program.
Urban was the face of Florida, too, to that degree.
True.
Urban was also.
Really?
Yeah,
I'd say
man.
Tebow.
He ran that swamp. You know it.
Agreed. But if we're going to talk about coaches, Florida certainly had a face of the program as the coach as well. But it was Tebow. Tebow was the guy. Everybody knew it at the time.
Totally out, and I will tread very lightly on this, but we have to recognize as well the Tebow phenomenon, that entire story, the experience, it transcended different lines, different backgrounds in society. Social media isn't exactly real life as far as blown up to that proportion.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll hit the rewind, but next, Bradford has his college football corner right here on BK and Ferrario.
All right, I'm excited.
we've got your chance to win a 4-pack of passes to Monster Jam. Saturday, September 20th at the Dome at America's Center. Get ready to cheer, scream, and be amazed as massive Monster Jam trucks and world champion drivers take over St. Louis for the ultimate day packed with high-flying action and jaw-dropping stunts.
Get all the info and enter to win that free 4-pack of tickets for Monster Jam. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Bucco's back in town for the first time since early May. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Tonight at 6:45, St. Louis will open a 3-game series against Pittsburgh. Ollie Marmoltab's Michael McGreevy as his starter here, while Pirates skipper Don Kelly rolls with Johan Oviedo. Earlier, BK as well as Tanner asked Katie Wu whether Mason Wynn's health could affect J.J. Weatherholtz.
From a fan perspective, if Mason Wynn is unavailable and you have an opportunity for someone to play every day at shortstop, why not see J.J. Weatherholtz? Of course, guys, though, it's never that easy, and there are bigger picture organization things that don't even have to deal with him fully that both Mo and Heimblum will have to consider.
Meanwhile, soccer-wise, City SC parts ways with sporting director Lutz Pfannenstiel. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
T-Bone, what'd you just say?
Micah Parsons update. No sign of him during the open portion practice to the media today. That's your Cowboys update.
Who could have seen it coming, really?
I know.
What's the snack, though? What's the snack choice?
His back is probably acting up on him again.
I'd go with Wales.
I will cape for Micah Parsons. He should be paid. What he did at the game the other night, come on. Like, your team's out there playing. Can we not, lay on the training table? Come on, man. Come on. All right, so that's your update in Cowboys land. I'm guessing we'll probably have something that gets finalized there within the next week or two. That would be my guess, because that's just the way that Jerry Jones operates. With T-Bone and Bradford on BK. T-Bone, here's my question for you. Does it make it more or less likely for teams to play these big non-conference games now that we have 9 games, a 9-game SEC slate coming? Because over the weekend, I heard Eli Drinkwitz talking, and he was like, listen, I'm in favor of this. I think this is a good thing for college football, that we're going to have more games that matter, more games that you look at and you say, all right, we're going to learn something about Mizzou this week. That's good for the teams, for the sport, for fans. It's great for everybody involved. He did say there's probably going to be some unintended consequences, though. He didn't specify what he thinks those will be. But my guess is Texas versus Ohio State. I love that game's being played this weekend. I think it's awesome. The South Carolina game against Virginia Tech, cool game. Notre Dame versus Miami, even better game. I love the fact that we're getting these big Power 5 non-con opponents in week 1 of the college football season that are willing to go up against one another head-to-head. I'm not sure if this is going to continue, though, because each team is required to play one non-conference Power 5 opponent. They're not required to play the best team in that conference, though. It's not necessary for every season a team like Texas to play a team like Ohio State, or for Tennessee to play Syracuse, though that's obviously on a lower level. T-Bone, what do you think the consequences will be of the SEC going to a 9-game conference slate for this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I don't have as big a worry that you're not going to see teams schedule even the best of the best in their non-conference slate when it comes to trying to get that Power 4 team, because you still get, even if you lose, with expanded playoffs coming as well, I know, which is in the backdrop of this, 2 more mulligans probably. You can probably have 3 losses in whatever the new college football model will be and still potentially be a playoff team. And if you're being honest, this can potentially, if you're a team like Alabama, let's say, or like Texas, where if you beat Ohio State and then you slip up in 2 or 3 games in the SEC, because it is possible you just draw a gauntlet that year in the SEC conference, you can at least look at it and say, well, hey, look, we just beat the Big Ten champion in Ohio State, potentially. So I don't think it's going to be that much of a concern, because I thought if there was ever going to be a concern of this, it would have been when it was a 4-team playoff. Why, if I'm a team, would I schedule someone that was this difficult? Like, I just went back and looked at 2022. Ohio State, Notre Dame, 5-2 was in week 1. Ohio State won, by the way, 21-10. Notre Dame's football season could have been over right then and there with that one loss. So if there was ever any time not to schedule any power opponents in your non-con schedule, it would have been back when the playoff was 4 teams, or now as it is 12 teams. I'm actually not worried about it. I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue moving forward.
I think the 9-team conference slate means we're not getting that big expanded playoff. I think that's part of this. Because the Big Ten was pushing that as a response to the SEC not going to 9 games. And then once the Big Ten started pushing that, we saw the SEC say, all right, fine. We'll go ahead and go to this. That was their counter. So my guess is if we see the expansion of the playoff, it will not be what has been proposed by the Big Ten. It will not be like 24 to 28 teams. Probably be 16. And in that scenario, you mentioned, T-Bone, like, hey, you could have this great win that's on your schedule. If you're in the SEC and you have a good season, you're getting into the playoff. That's just the SEC, no matter which teams you play on any given year, is viewed that, I mean, if you go 7-2 in the conference, you had a really good season, you're getting into the playoff. And you're more likely to screw that up with one of those non-con losses than you are to bolster your argument to get into the playoff with one of those wins. So I think it will have a consequence. I do think that you will see teams shy away from games like this potentially. Maybe you'll see one non-con game a year where you play, like Mizzou plays against Kansas or Illinois. That's their non-con games coming up. I think, though, as they start to schedule out further and further, I don't think you're going to see many of these Texas versus Ohio State types of games. I think that'll become less and less common.
I'm also pretty interested to see exactly how it impacts BK, the middle to back portion of the conference itself, because you consider then what is the benefit of potentially having one less game against one of the Titans within your own league in the SEC versus a cupcake of sorts, the bowl prospects as far as accruing money that way versus how the revenue is being distributed. So those are numbers we don't necessarily have, but still making a bowl, even in this watered-down, diluted era, it still matters for those teams that are striving, vying just to get to 5, 6, and above.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to win. I think you're going to have 2 to 3 losses max on your schedule to be able to get into the playoff as things are currently standing. And that's tough, man. When you're in the SEC, you can typically find at least 2 losses on your schedule. You're telling me I'm just willy-nilly going to potentially add a third? Or I'm a 50-50 proposition to win it at best, and instead I could have a 70-30 game on my schedule where I'm likely to win that game? I think there will be a lot of coaches that say the math just doesn't work in our favor here. It doesn't make sense for us to go and play that specific game. And I don't think the money is such that it really changes things for you in a meaningful way. These teams are already selling out. Like Texas versus Ohio State, it's going to be a huge game. There's going to be a lot of money involved. Do you know what would also be huge for Texas? If they played, I don't know, UTSA this weekend. They're going to make a boatload of money. It's the first game of the regular season. Mizzou's sold out, man. Are they playing a team that anybody is interested in? Hell no. But they're sold out because it's the return of football.
A win this year.
And next week it's going to be sold out again because it's Kansas coming to town. So, I think we're going to see fewer and fewer of these games.
I'm just not overly, because I continue to see this even when you saw 4-team playoff.
You didn't have 9 games in the SEC.
Sure,
that's the change here. The change is the extra game that is potentially and likely a loss.
It was the same calculus. It was, hey, okay, well, then it was you only get 1 loss essentially to be a playoff team. So why would I schedule another superpower from the Big Ten, for example, when I could potentially end up having that loss there and then 1 loss in the SEC kills me? If not any, I could go. I
didn't see many of those games.
I mean, I still remember big games from the last couple of years. I mean, I just read one off. Texas and Alabama played each other early in 2022.
Yeah, but they're easy. They're one-offs. Like they were the college football kickoff most often. That's the game that you see. That's the one that a lot of the times they would play it in Atlanta, right? There would be that big Chick-fil-A college football kickoff or whatever. And then they kind of disappear. And then you get into like week 2, 3, 4, and beyond of the regular season, and they're fewer and further between. It feels as though over the last couple of seasons, we've started to see that rise again. My guess is if I had to predict, T-Bone, we will see that start to go down as soon as next year because of the 9th game in conference. I'm okay with that because you're trading, some of these games that we're talking about for Texas versus Texas A&M or Florida versus Tennessee, whatever it may be. You're getting another one of those big games. We're going to have more big games because of the way that the SEC is going to be scheduling. But it will also mean potentially fewer, in my opinion, of the non-conference big-time Power 5 opponents going up against one another in any individual season. I think we'll see maybe a couple of those, but very few moving forward. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope nothing more than anything that I'm wrong about this. Teams typically, they'll look out in their own best interest as opposed to what's in the best interest of the sport. Otherwise, we wouldn't have all of these teams getting into the same
Texas wouldn't be in the SEC?
Cal wouldn't be in the ACC. Just as an example.
Stanford, ACC power.
That's
Mizzou
right.
wouldn't have left the Big Eight.
Coming up next, Rewind, including Bradford's College Football Corner here on 101 ESPN.
NCAA football is back on ESPN. Saturday, Ohio State and Texas. Pregame at 10:30, kickoff at 11. The NCAA plays on 101 ESPN. St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. And the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
While you're over there, check out the 101 ESPN app sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. You can find our latest Redbird report from last week. That's available for you. And you can find all of the college football connection with Bradford Bruns. He's one of the best in the business. He knows his college football. He tried to warn me about the K-State Wildcats over the weekend. I didn't listen. Iowa State found a way to win that game. So Bradford's going to make us all smarter about college football in the final 2 minutes of today's show. Bradford, take it away.
It's time for the 2-minute drill.
All right, guys, I did sincerely enjoy that rain-soaked Donnybrook in Ireland, and definitely more so than the Johnson family. We digress, though. Anyway, the turnovers and the sloppiness aside, I firmly believe you saw two schools that defensively, at least, are going to have a lot to say about the way the Big 12 title race shakes out. But speaking of that conference, we have to go to Lawrence, okay? We have to go to the renovated stadium there at KU because it won't be long before, that's right, September the 5th, the Jayhawks rolling into Como to Faurot Field. And did you just see the Jayhawks unleash holy heck against, yes, Fresno State, but still, the armchair quarterbacks, we can deify Jalen Daniels. We can talk about how the ground game looked exceptionally strong as well. But I firmly believe, tactically speaking, there is going to be a big chess match unfolding week 2 between the Tigers and the Jayhawks when it comes to being able to contain Pickett. Not just the 2 touchdowns against the Bulldogs on Saturday, but rather the fact that he plays much larger than his size. And yes, in that case, Norwood's going to have his hands full, but it goes beyond him as well. When you're talking about bringing in somebody from Alabama, Henderson, we didn't even hear a lot from him in the Week 1 win. Stephen Hall, Toriano Pride Jr., that entire secondary, even with safety help over the top from Burks, Catalan, etc., will definitely be challenged on that affair. And a lot has been made about the offensive coordinator there for Kansas. How about the new DC as well? 37 yards allowed on the ground to the tune of 29 carries. Watch out indeed. And another shout out at the signal caller position has to go to Michigan. Bryce Underwood, the true freshman, he nabs the #1 job. Head coach Moore saying he does essentially everything right. So basically the exact opposite of what the Wolverines program does.
That is Bradford Bruns. He did a fantastic job filling in over the last week. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Alex Ferrario joins us. The Fast Lane is next year on 101 ESPN.